Ahem, it hurt badly. When Sang Chio coughed, a metallic, fishy taste of blood filled her throat. Suddenly, a hubbub of voices drifted over. That little wretch dares to hang herself? She's eaten and lived off our old Sang family for years. Even a dog would have grown loyal by now. She's just a born ungrateful beast. The arranged marriage was already settled with a good price. Hand her over and we get hundreds of yuan. Anyway, the young master of the Zhao family is dead already. It'd be a fitting match for her if she dies too. Just get her sent over quickly. A ghost marriage? To a dead man? Sang Chio finally sensed that something was terribly wrong. She forced her heavy eyelids open and scanned her surroundings. She froze, then overwhelming joy washed over her. She was lying on a pile of hay in a cramped firewood shed. Only a tiny skylight sat high up on the wall. She was discarded here like an unwanted stray. Run down as this place was, it was the home she knew all too well. She had spent the first 20 years of her life here. Every misfortune that befell her had its start right here. All at once, someone grabbed her right hand. She lifted her gaze and saw a teenage girl with neat black ponytail. Her big clear eyes were filled with worry. Tears instantly blurred Sang Chio's sight. Little sister. Ignoring the stabbing pain in her raw throat, she pulled the slender girl tightly into her arms. It was Nian Nian, her beloved little sister. She never dared to dream she would see her little sister alive again. She had regretted countless times in her past life for failing to save her. But now Nian Nian was right in front of her. Overwhelmed with emotion, she sobbed brokenly. Am I dreaming? Getting to see you like this, it's such a blessing. Don't ever take everything on yourself for me again. Trapped in the tight embrace, Nian Nian did not know how to respond. She was mute and could not speak a single word. After a long moment, she stroked Sang Chio's hair and gestured anxiously with her hands. If sister does not want to marry, you don't have to. I can take your place to marry the young master of the Zhao family. Don't leave me. I'm so scared. Sang Chio's eyes brimmed with tears as she understood the sign language. Yet shock crashed over her. The young master of the Zhao family? That incident had happened decades ago. A thought suddenly flashed through her mind. She firmly gripped her younger sister's hand. How old are you now? Nian Nian looked surprised. She thought her elder sister was still confused after waking up and did not question it. Sister, I'm 14 this year. That meant she herself was only 16. She pinched her thigh hard. Pain shot through her. Everything was real. She had not died. She had been reborn at the age of 16. Her little sister was alive and well. Crystal tears streamed down her cheeks nonstop. Years of pent-up grievances surged in her heart. She grieved, yet she was also utterly thankful. Just as Nian Nian stared wide-eyed, unsure how to comfort her, the rickety wooden door of the firewood shed was kicked violently open. A silver-haired old woman leaning on a cane appeared. Her venomous eyes fixed on Sang Chio like a venomous snake. You're awake and still lying there idling? You little wretch. We won't even need to pay people to drag you away now. Hurry up and head to the Yao household yourself. Because of your silly stunt, the Zhao family cut the payment by 100 yuan. What a wasteful girl. You're going to pay off your father's debts. As Li Xiaofan snarled, she raised her cane, ready to strike Sang Chio. Mother, please. Don't hit Xiaoqiu. A figure threw herself over to shield Sang Chio. The woman spoke amid choked sobs. It was Su Peijian, her birth mother. Always docile and obedient, she was standing up to her mother-in-law for her daughter for the very first time. It was second brother who gambled away the money. Why must my daughter pay for his mistakes? How dare you talk back? All you've given birth to since marrying in are two useless girls. You eat our food and live under our roof, and now you refuse to do your part for the family? Eldest son should have sent you away long ago. You're just a hen that cannot lay eggs. Su Peijian paled and fell silent, yet her body still sheltered Sang Chio. She had paid a heavy fine back then hoping to give her husband a son, only to have another daughter. Because of that, neighbors constantly gossiped about her, and she endured endless scolding from her mother-in-law every single day. Sang Chio's gaze turned icy. She quietly stretched her right hand backward and gripped a wooden stick. She remembered everything clearly. In her previous life, her grandmother forced her into a ghost marriage solely to settle her second uncle's gambling debts. Why should she bear the consequences of his wrongdoing? Heaven had granted her a second chance at life. She would never let anyone bully the three of them again. Li Xiaofan flinched, startled by the ferocity radiating from Sang Chio. Her words grew even more vicious. You little wild brat. You dare grab a stick? You're rebelling against me. Shouting, she swung her cane, aiming to hit Su Peijian instead. Mother, stop. I will find a way. A stout man's voice echoed from outside the doorway. The hunched man tossed aside his tobacco roll and stepped forward slowly. Father, Sang Chio's eyes grew moist. Her father, mother, and little sister were all alive. It was wonderful. Sang Guojiang frowned heavily, his dark face clouded with worry, and spoke tentatively. Enough arguing. Eldest daughter is still young. We will call off the marriage with the Zhao family. I will head into town to sort out the money. Tell second brother to ask for a few more days of grace. Sang Guojiang worked as a stonemason, barely earning enough to feed the family. He never had any spare savings. He had no real solution. He could only borrow money. Your grim line of work will never get you any loans. Li Xiufan sneered with contempt. She had always looked down on his trade. Few villagers built new houses, so most of his work involved carving tombstones. That was why she favored her second son excessively, treating the eldest son who supported the whole family as worthless. I heard the stone quarry in town is hiring workers. I will go check tomorrow. Sang Guojiang's face flushed, and he spoke haltingly after a long pause. Li Xiufan rolled her eyes and let out a cold snort. Useless man. If there's no money by tomorrow evening, you will personally deliver this money, losing girl to the Zhao household. Sang Guojiang replied gruffly, very well. Mother, you may head back first. Leaning on her cane, Li Xiufan left triumphantly. Sang Chio gritted her teeth, struggling to hold herself back from charging forward. Husband, even if the quarry hires people, we won't receive wages for at least a month, Su Peijian said anxiously. Her father was the village teacher, so she could read and understood basic morality. Still, when crises arose, she relied on the man of the house to make decisions. I can talk to the foreman and ask for an advance. Try not to worry. Sang Guojiang had always treated her gently. That was why Su Peijian had insisted on marrying him all those years ago, even without a betrothal gift. Standing nearby, Sang Chio's heart lurched. In her past life, her father never landed a job at the quarry. Instead, he took out high-interest loans to pay off her second uncle's debts. Compounding interest quickly overwhelmed him, and he ended up hanging himself. Crushed by grief, her mother fell seriously ill soon after his funeral and passed away not long after. Left orphaned, she and her younger sister fell completely under Li Xiufan's control. One was forced into a distant marriage, the other worked endlessly and was ruthlessly exploited. Eventually, Nian suffered from chronic illness and died far away from home. Father, I will go to town with you tomorrow. She clenched her fists firmly. In this life, she would protect her family at all costs. You stay home. Sang Guojiang shook his head disapprovingly. A young girl should not wander around in public. As the head of the family, he was used to making final decisions. Having rejected Sang Chio's request, he lit another tobacco stick and walked toward the backyard. Xiaoqiu, your father will figure something out. I will never let you marry a dead man. Mother, take little sister back inside to rest. I'm going to wash myself. Sang Chio nodded firmly, yet she resolved to sneak into town tomorrow. She could not let her father borrow usurious loans. Otherwise, their whole family would be destroyed. Come back soon, Su Peijian glanced at the darkening sky. She did not want her daughter to head out at this hour. But she knew how particular the girl was about cleanliness. Covered in grime after lying on the hay, she would not be able to rest properly without washing. After bidding Su Peijian farewell, Sang Chio followed the narrow path toward the river on the eastern side of the village. Lost in heavy thoughts, she reached the river, undressed, and stepped into the water, before she sensed something amiss. Who's there? Come out. Reeds lined the riverbank, swaying in the evening breeze. She caught a fleeting glimpse of a figure just moments earlier. Wariness filled her beautiful eyes. Right then, the reeds rustled, and a person scrambled up onto the bank. Halt! Sang Chio called out, yet she dared not give chase. She was soaked, wearing only thin undergarments. If others saw her in this state, rumors would spread instantly. Judging from the fleeing silhouette, it was definitely a man. Could it have been him? A surge of revulsion welled up inside her. Sang Chio finished washing quickly and climbed ashore to get dressed. If that really had been him, she pushed the thought aside. She needed to head home first. His hasty escape proved he had something to hide. Night had fully fallen. Sang Chio had not walked far when she spotted a dark figure standing motionless beside the road. It's you. Her heart skipped a beat. After looking closely, she recognized the thin teenage girl, Sun Yushi. Sun's family home stood across the river. After Sun Yushi's birth, mother passed away following a distant marriage. Her father abandoned her and sent her to live with relatives. Life as a dependent was harsh. She often went hungry, as thin as a bamboo pole. Still, she was kind-hearted and had helped Sangchio many times in the past. Sangchio also remembered that Sun Yushi would achieve great things in the future, becoming the only university student from their village. Xiaoqiu, Sun Yushi parted her lips, stared at her with a complicated expression, then suddenly turned and ran away. Sangchio stared in confusion, wondering what had happened. She was in a hurry to get home, so she did not dwell on it. The night grew quiet. As soon as Sangchio stepped into the courtyard, she spotted two furtive figures beneath a distant tree. She slowed her steps immediately, held her breath, and hid beside the wall. Though the two Sang brothers were both married, the family had not split their household. They lived in the remote eastern courtyard. Second brother Sang and his wife Hiji stayed there, while Li Xiufan occupied the main house. How much money can Lyson give you this time? A minimum of 100 yuan. Sangchio recognized the voices, second brother Sang and Hiji. That's far too little. After all this trouble, we still couldn't send the girl away. 100 yuan won't even buy me new hair ribbons and 2 red dresses. It'll be gone in an instant. Be grateful for what we get. Even though eldest brother is simple-minded, he will fight tooth and nail for his daughter. Didn't you see him arguing fiercely with mother today? Hiji spat on the ground. I have no fear of him. Everything clicked into place for Sangchio. Second brother Sang had plotted alongside outsiders from the very start. Her honest, gullible father had been made a scapegoat. Anger rushed to her head. Her jaw trembled, and she longed to storm over and confront them. But then she noticed the earthen jar held in Hiji's hands. Second brother Sang was digging a hole beneath the tree with a shovel. What were they planning to bury? Hurry, put our thing inside. Hee. Just a moment, dig the hole a little deeper. Eagerly, they tossed soil everywhere. Once the pit was deep enough, second brother Sang took the jar from Hiji and buried it underground. A buzzing noise filled Sangchio's ears as she watched silently. The pair filled the hole, stamped repeatedly on the loose soil, and finally left reluctantly. The candlelight in the main house went out. Sangchio's face turned paler than the moonlight. After a long while, a cold smirk tugged at her lips. Her previous death had not been in vain. She now knew the true cause of the tragedy that cost her parents their lives. Second brother Sang was not worthy of being her father's brother. He sought only to drain her father dry, greedy and ungrateful to the core. Cold glint flickered in her eyes. She moved silently toward the newly filled pit beneath the tree. The next day, Sangchio was woken early by the creaking sound of wooden cartwheels. Beside her, her little sister rolled over and continued sleeping soundly. A deep sense of contentment washed over her. Her parents were alive, her little sister was safe. For the first time in years, she felt blessed. As long as their family stayed together, life would get better. Sangchio climbed out of bed quietly and wiped her face with a cloth towel. When she pushed open the door, she saw Su Peijian struggling to carry a big red quilt onto a handcart. Sangguijiang stood beside her with a stern, unwilling expression. "Mother." Sangchio called softly. "It's still early. You can sleep a while longer." Su Peijian looked flustered upon seeing her daughter, and quickly rested her hand over the quilt as if trying to hide it. Sangchio recognized the quilt embroidered with large double happiness symbols. It had been her mother's dowry from her natal family. She cherished it deeply, only taking it outside to dry on sunny days. "Mother, are you planning to pawn it for money?" A flush spread across Su Peijian's cheeks. She stammered in reply. "And no, of course not. I noticed a small tear on the quilt. I asked your father to take it to be mended." The lie was full of holes. Her mother's embroidery skill was famous across the village. She would never need to find someone else to fix a tiny rip. Tears stung her eyes. The quilt itself was not worth a fortune, yet she understood her mother's desire to share her father's burden. No matter what, she would not let her mother lose her most precious dowry. Having made up her mind, Sangchio did not expose the lie and walked back into the room. She carried out a chest full of old textbooks. "Father, I have memorized everything written in these books. We can sell them for money." Both Sangguijiang and Su Peijian paled in shock. Sangguijiang's face turned bright red with rage. He fought hard to restrain himself from raising his hand to strike her. "Selling your books? You will bring shame to our ancestors." Sang Chio closed her eyes, waiting for the blow that never landed. Sang Guojiang's chest heaved violently. He glared fiercely at her. He suffered greatly from being uneducated and firmly believed knowledge could change fate. That was why he was determined to fund Sang Chio's schooling no matter how tight money got. Once, when Sang Chio mentioned dropping out, he flew into a rage and disciplined her with a bamboo duster. Memories flooded her heart, filling her with sorrow. Still, she forced a smile and patted her chest confidently. My teacher once said books are just carriers of knowledge. True learning comes from remembering what is written on the pages. These are only lower-grade textbooks. I have kept all the others. If you don't believe me, let Mother test me. Su Peijian could read. After a moment's hesitation, she picked up one of the books and asked several questions. Sang Chio answered every single one flawlessly. She could even name the exact page each passage appeared on. Husband. Su Peijian was astonished and unsure what to do. She looked toward Sang Guojiang for guidance. Sang Guojiang hesitated. Father, I refuse to marry a dead man. Think of me, please. Let us sell these books. I will go to town with you. I know which shop will pay the highest price. Sang Chio hardened her resolve and piled the textbooks onto the cart herself. With no other choice left, Sang Guojiang finally nodded. Faint stars still dotted the sky. Sang Chio followed behind Sang Guojiang, stumbling along the uneven path toward town. Shopkeeper, please keep this quilt for my mother for 1 month. I will definitely come redeem it. Stepping out of the pawnshop, she pleaded earnestly with the owner. The middle-aged man with a mustache smiled, yet his words were blunt. Everyone who pawns goods says the same thing. If I believed every promise, this shop would have gone bankrupt long ago. Sang Chio fell silent. She knew he spoke the truth. 10 days. I guarantee I will be back within 10 days. Sang Chio gritted her teeth. She could not bear to see her mother heartbroken. The pawnbroker stroked his mustache and unexpectedly agreed. Not 1 day later. This quilt is not worth much to begin with, and our storage space is limited. Very well. I will be back on time. Thank you, shopkeeper. Outside the pawnshop, Sang Guojiang stared at his daughter in disbelief. Was this confident girl negotiating with the pawnbroker really his daughter? In his memory, Sang Chio had always been quiet and reserved. Now she seemed like a completely different person, brimming with resolve. Xiao Chio, do you truly have a way to bring that quilt home? He waited anxiously for her reply. It pained him deeply to pawn his wife's dowry. I have a plan. Sang Chio replied, then hurried forward and pointed at a poster on the wall. She turned to him excitedly. Father, the stone quarry is hiring workers. Monthly wages are 50 yuan. Hurry over and ask about the position. It's 3 li from here. Sang Guojiang grew excited instantly. Is that true? He had lied earlier about the quarry opening vacancies. Could fortune truly be favoring them? He could not read, but he trusted the certainty in Sang Chio's tone and prepared to push the cart onward, before suddenly stopping. 3 li was quite a distance. The whole trip there and back would be 6 li on foot. Could Sang Chio endure such a long walk? Father, I will wait for you in town. There's no need for me to travel that far. As if reading his thoughts, Sang Chio smiled and sat down on a stone beside the road, pulling a few pamphlets out of her inner pocket. All right. Wait here for me to return. Sang Guojiang thought she was going to review her lessons and did not dare disturb her, so he left quickly. As soon as he was gone, Sang Chio stood up. That was not a recruitment notice for the stone quarry at all. She had lied on purpose, merely to stall her father and stop him from borrowing money at usurious interest rates. An idea to earn money quickly had occurred to her. Sang Chio twisted and turned down lanes, and soon arrived at a residence with a large vermilion gate. You hopeless boy. I've explained this math problem 8 times and you still don't get it. Are you even using your brain? Do you want to drive your own mother to an early grave? Your father and I slog away at our business to support you, and one day you'll squander everything we've earned. A woman's furious voice drifted out, utterly familiar to her. Lilan, Tian Huayu's mother, was once again tutoring him in person. Sang Chio's classmate Tian Huayu lived in town. She consistently topped every grade, while he ranked near the bottom year after year. She remembered he was a quiet boy from a well-off family. Still, he failed to get into a decent university and ended up as a casual laborer. Later on, he got cheated out of money, and every penny his parents gave him was wasted away. He was their only son. Lilan worried herself sick over his studies, trying every means possible. She had even come to Sang Chio's home once, asking how she managed to rank first every exam. Her own mother was a straightforward woman who knew no tricks and simply replied that she had no idea. Left with no other choice, Li Lan resolved to teach her son herself. Word had it she often flew into rages until her blood pressure spiked. Still, this was the perfect moment for her to make a good impression. Knock, knock, knock. Taking a deep breath, she rapped on the door. Who is it? Li Lan was still simmering from scolding her son. She yanked the door open, and her expression shifted when she saw the clean, featured girl before her. You scheming girl, wait, is that Sang Chio? Li Lan had met Sang Chio only a handful of times and nearly failed to recognize her. Her gaze fell on the booklet in Sang Chio's hands, and she finally placed the girl. A warm smile spread across her face at once. Why, it's Sang Chio. What brings you here? Pay no mind to what I was shouting just now. Have you come to see my Huayu? Come on in quickly. Li Lan was unbelievably welcoming. Before Sang Chio could greet her properly, she pulled her inside and pressed her into a chair opposite Tian Huayu. Across the table, Tian Huayu met her eyes, clearly stunned. To tell the truth, Sang Chio and Tian Huayu had barely exchanged more than a few words over the years. Tian Huayu had delicate, neat features and rarely spoke. Now, confused about why the top student Sang Chio had turned up at his house, the naturally reserved boy dared not ask. He merely lowered his head and twisted the pen in his hand. You two chat. I'll go cut some fruit. Make yourself at home, Sang Chio. Don't stand on ceremony. Merchants naturally held great respect for scholars, and Li Lan was no exception. She was so flustered she hardly knew what to do with her hands. Yet Sang Chio stood up and followed Li Lan. Aunt Li, I have something I want to talk to you about. Go ahead. Li Lan replied immediately, instinctively lifting a hand to smooth her fringe. Shrewd from years of dealing with people, she suspected Sang Chio would not drop by unannounced without reason. Has my boy gotten into trouble at school again, and the teacher sent you to speak to me? I remember you're not only the top student, but also the class study monitor. It's nothing like that, Aunt Li, don't worry. Sang Chio laughed at her guess, her nervousness easing. She held up the booklet in her hands and spoke her mind in one breath. Aunt Li, I'm looking for work. I can give Tian Huayu private tutoring and help him improve his grades. Silence descended over the room once she finished speaking. Li Lan froze, staring at her as if seeing a stranger. Sang Chio's heart raced. Reborn into this life, she knew private tutoring would become commonplace before long, yet no one had put forward such an idea in the present era. Sang Guijiang had no savings. Even if they pawned every valuable thing in the house, and there was precious little worth pawning, all she had to rely on was the knowledge stored in her head. No matter the era, all parents cared deeply about their children. Sang Chio had set her sights on the Tian family. Both of Tian Huayu's parents ran businesses with multiple sources of income. They had solid savings and valued education highly. With the college entrance examination reinstated the previous year, they were desperate to get Tian Huayu admitted to university. Regretfully, Sang Chio had never sat for the college entrance examination in her past life. Fortunately, she had held the top position throughout her 3 years of high school, giving her plenty of credibility. There was another factor too. Tian Huayu was the cousin of that man. Growing uncomfortable under Li Lan's unwavering stare, Sang Chio added quickly, "It's quite simple to understand. I plan to come after school to work through homework with Tian Huayu and explain any questions he struggles with. I will make sure he understands everything. Study progress is guaranteed. But you would need to pay me a tutoring fee." I see what you mean. Li Lan had wide experience and a sharp mind. Her gaze towards Sang Chio grew distinctly brighter, filled with delight. You truly are sharp-witted. I've thought about this myself once. I even begged your head teacher for help, but she said even Confucius himself could not teach my hopeless boy. I'm overjoyed you're willing to tutor him. Li Lan squeezed her hand so tightly her palm ached, leaving Sang Chio dazed. Had she agreed so easily? Noticing her own overexcitement, Li Lan cleared her throat softly. But you'd be putting in so much effort and enduring all this trouble, child. Has something happened to your family? She had traveled far and wide, and her insight surpassed ordinary folk. Sang Chio lowered her eyes at the right moment, her thick eyelashes trembling. Aunt Li, my family has always been dirt poor. A few days ago, my second uncle ran up gambling debts, and Grandma wants to marry me off to get money. I refuse to be wed, so I have no choice but to come up with this plan. She was not exaggerating her plight. Her grandmother truly had arranged a ghost marriage for her. Wealthy and moderately educated, Li Lan heard Sang Chio's story for the first time, and the girl's miserable fate nearly brought tears to her eyes. What? If I were your grandmother, I would hold my head high walking out the door with such an outstanding granddaughter. How could she bear marrying you off? Since I've heard of your trouble, I must help you. How about this? I'll pay you 60 yuan a month to come and teach Huayu every evening. Sang Chio's eyes widened. She recalled that senior stonemasons at the quarry only earned that amount each month. The tombstone carvings Sang Guojiang made brought merely 3 yuan apiece. Seeing her stunned reaction, Li Lan frowned. Is that insufficient? I didn't set the pay equal to formal teachers' wages. After all, you're still a student. But we can adjust. Every time Huayu raises his exam score by 10 points, I'll reward you another 10 yuan. Does that sound fair? Performance bonuses as well? Sang Chio nodded rapidly. That's more than enough money, Aunt Li. I promise I will teach Tian Huayu well and make sure he improves across all subjects. She feared that if she hesitated any longer, Li Lan would raise the pay further, and she would feel uneasy accepting so much. Stepping out of the Tian residence, Sang Chio clutched the 100 yuan Li Lan had handed her. She pinched her arm, and the sharp pain confirmed this was not a dream. Had she earned money so effortlessly? Li Lan had paid her 1 month's tutoring fee in advance. The remaining 40 yuan bought the booklet she had brought, filled with her condensed, high-quality class notes. She had also promised Li Lan that, apart from weekday after-school sessions, she would spare several hours every Sunday to summarize knowledge for Tian Huayu and fill in his learning gaps. This task held no difficulty for Sang Chio. She quickly formulated a thorough, systematic teaching plan. From the exam papers she had seen, Tian Huayu handled memorization, based questions fairly well, yet struggled greatly with abstract thinking. She tucked the newly acquired 100 yuan safely away and carefully transferred the other 60 yuan and 50 cents she had kept wrapped in a handkerchief into a separate pocket. Humming quietly, she strode lightly toward the meeting place she had agreed on with Sang Guojiang. Money brought confidence. When Sang Chio reached the crossroads where she had parted with her father, she spotted a lonely figure in the distance. He must have failed to secure the work he sought. Still, Sang Chio felt no anxiety. As long as her father had not turned to usurers, everything was fine. She broke into a smile and hurried over to greet him. Father, did everything work out? Embarrassment flashed across Sang Guojiang's face, and he let out a heavy sigh. Yet he quickly forced a smile to comfort her. Don't worry. Father will think of another way. Other than borrowing money at exorbitant interest rates, what options remained? Memories of her past life washed over her. In a rush, Sang Chio pretended to suddenly remember something. She pulled out the 60 yuan and 50 cents from her pocket and spoke mysteriously. Father, look. She grabbed Sang Guojiang's hand and placed the money in his palm. He gasped in shock. Where had she gotten such a sum? 610 yuan notes, more than he could earn in 2 or 3 months. Little Chio, where did you get this money? Tell me at once. Did you steal it? I have always told you never to compromise your integrity for money. We will return it together to whoever you took it from. Sang Guojiang's voice shook, yet he dared not shout, afraid others would overhear and brand his daughter a thief. He raised his hand, ready to discipline her, but Sang Chio dodged away. She smiled, meeting her father's flushed face. You've misunderstood me, father. I earned this money by selling my books. She lied calmly. In truth, the money had come from the jar buried underground. Sang her second uncle had once possessed substantial savings, yet he had conspired with outsiders to frame her father. They deserved what was coming to them. Besides, a mere 60 yuan and 50 cents paled in comparison to the 200 yuan debt they had pressured Sang Guojiang into covering. Sold your books. Sang Guojiang looked utterly unconvinced. What books could possibly fetch such a price? Don't lie to your father. He knew clearly that Sang Chio's annual tuition was only 10 yuan, and all her textbooks combined would never amount to this sum. Sang Chio stuck to her story. Think about it, father. Everyone knows I have consistently ranked first in grade. I marked all the key points and difficult knowledge in my books. That learning experience and method is what holds real value. Even so, she had failed to attend the university she had dreamed of in her previous life. A twinge of sorrow stirred in her heart. She turned her face aside to push the grief away, then pulled another 60 yuan from her pocket and handed it to Sang Guojiang. Also, I've reached an agreement with Aunt Li Lan. I will go to their home after school and on Sundays to tutor Tian Huayu, and she will pay me monthly wages. She squeezed her father's rough, calloused hand tightly. Father, rest assured. One day I will give you, mother and little sister, a good life. Sangguojiang stood stunned. The banknotes in his hands felt as heavy as lead. He stared at them non-stop and his eyes grew damp. Poverty can nurture outstanding children. Who says girls cannot achieve great things? It's all father's fault for earning so little. My child, you've suffered. Sang Chio's nose stung, yet she held back her tears. This was no time for sentiment. She stepped forward to help him push his cart. Father, we still need more money. Let us borrow whatever we can from others. Sangguojiang nodded. He was not a suspicious man, and once his daughter explained things, he chose to believe her. He did not even realize that, somewhere along the line, he had come to trust almost everything Sang Chio said. Under the curious stares of villagers, the father and daughter managed to borrow another 40 yuan. Combined with the 30 yuan they received from pawning their quilts, they had 190 yuan and 50 cents in total, still short of 9 yuan and 50 cents. We'll make do for now, father. It's growing late, let's head home. Sangguojiang rarely carried so much money on his person. He wrapped the notes layer upon layer with great caution, pressing the bundle firmly through his pocket before he felt relieved. On the way back, Sang Chio spotted a candy vendor. She asked her father for 2 cents and bought a rabbit-shaped sugar figurine, carefully tucking it up her sleeve. Father and daughter trudged toward the village, both soaked in sweat. As soon as they caught sight of cooking smoke curling from rooftops, a man carrying a bucket walked toward them along the ridge and called out mockingly. Sangguojiang, you sure take your time getting things sorted. Hurry home, or they might rip the tiles right off your roof. Sang Chio ignored the man's sarcasm and pulled Sangguojiang forward to hurry home. From a distance, they saw a crowd of villagers gathered around their gate. Everyone craned their necks to peer inside, whispering and pointing. Make way. Sang Chio tugged Sangguojiang and pushed through the onlookers. In the center of the courtyard, an elderly red-faced man sat on the family's most valuable worn wooden armchair. Surrounding him stood 4 or 5 burly men in rough linen shirts, their jackets unbuttoned to reveal their sturdy chests. Sang Chio's family trembled beside them, and shattered bowls and plates littered the ground. Sang Chio's eyes narrowed sharply. She knew who this old man was. Old Master Zhou wielded considerable influence locally. His eldest son ran a gambling den, and he managed its affairs. He was wealthy and powerful, and everyone in the area addressed him respectfully as Master Zhou. In her past life, her father had failed to settle the debt, and men working for this old man had broken his limbs. Coldness settled in Sang Chio's gaze. She said nothing, watching as Sang her second uncle fawned beside the elder. Master Zhou, I truly apologize. I'm short of funds at the moment. Truth be told, my elder brother has gone to raise the money. Could you grant us a little more time? His ingratiating expression resembled a hound desperate to please its master. Old Master Zhou let out a cold snort and ignored him. Instead, he turned his gaze towards Sang Chio and Sangguojiang, a meaningful smile tugging at his lips. Isn't that your elder brother standing over there? All the Sang family members turned to look. Sangguojiang wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve and rushed over, as if seeing his savior. Brother, you've finally come. Master Zhou has been waiting for ages. Have you raised the money you owe him? Sang Chio felt exasperated. Who exactly owed the gambling debt? Before she could speak up, Li Xiufan thumped the ground furiously with her walking stick. You fool. You dragged this young girl off to handle business and only return now. What if something happens to your younger brother? The faint smile that had appeared on Sangguojiang's face vanished instantly. Sang Chio glanced at her father, her heart heavy. They shared the same mother, yet the grandmother favored the second son outrageously. The villagers overheard her words and assumed Sangguojiang was refusing to repay his debts, whispering among themselves. Sang Chio would stay silent no longer. Grandmother, you are mistaken. The gambling debt was never father's. Second uncle ought to settle it himself. Father has run everywhere to gather money for him. Instead of thanking him, how can you blame him? Some things needed to be clarified. She would not let Sang her second uncle continue bullying her father. Li Xiufan flew into a rage at once. She jumped to her feet and raised her walking stick high, aiming to strike Sang Chio's back. Nonsense. Who do you think you are? The signed document clearly states your father owes the money. What's more, as the eldest son, isn't it your father's duty to support his younger brother? We are all one family. She spoke without the slightest twinge of guilt. Despite her age, she brought the stick down with full force, landing solidly on Sangchio's back. Each blow sent a jolt of pain through her. Sangchio stood rigid and did not dodge. She wanted to remember this moment. Sangguijiang paled. He dared not argue with his mother, yet he could not bear to see Sangchio hurt. He rushed forward to shield her, letting the stick fall on his own body. "Mother, I have the money to settle the debt for the second boy." Sangchio watched her father's broad back and sighed inwardly. Li Xiufan halted, lowering the stick and huffing for breath. "How much money do you actually have?" Her sharp, cutting tone suggested it was only natural for Sangguijiang to pay off the second's debt. "Mother, we're still short." Sangguijiang was about to state the exact amount, but Sangchio coughed to cut him off. She turned to face the red-faced old Master Zhou. "Master Zhou, we can repay the debt, but I ask that you step aside and speak with me privately." She spoke without much confidence. She harbored a grudge against old Master Zhou from her past life. Still, she understood that his men came to collect debts as part of their work. They were not the root cause driving her parents to despair. For now, she hoped to avoid making bitter enemies. Li Xiufan had far more life experience than Sangchio and quickly caught on. She shot the girl several vicious glares. A child has no place to speak out of turn. "How dare you order Master Zhou around? Hand over the money at once. If you displease him, you will bear the consequences." She turned to offer a fawning smile to old Master Zhou. Old Master Yo eyed Sangchio. His pale eyebrows lifted, surprised. This scrawny young girl had remarkable courage. Curiosity stirred within him. Besides, she was merely a child and posed no threat. He waved his hand, rose to his feet, and followed Sangchio into the side chamber. Her second uncle and Li Xiufan's expressions shifted constantly. Sangguijiang and Su Peijian were equally anxious, yet they dared not intervene, only craning their necks to watch from outside. As soon as they entered the room, Sangchio pulled out the 190 yuan and 50 cents she had taken from her father and held it out. "Master Zhou, this is all the money we have." Old Master Zhou had not expected her to come straight to the point as she laid out the neatly stacked 10 yuan notes. He took the money, licked his fingertip, and began counting the bills. "This isn't the full amount." "No, it isn't," Sangchio admitted, summoning all her courage. "Does my second uncle receive a cut from you for this debt?" Her tone was resolute. Old Zhou's face darkened. "So what?" Sangchio remained calm and continued. "Let's speak plainly. Master Zhou built his standing through his own means, yet there are risks. If my father refuses to be pushed around any longer, can you still team up with my second uncle to control him?" "He wouldn't dare." Old Zhou let out a cold laugh. "Every debt I collect gets paid one way or another. If there's no money, lives will settle the score." "That's only fair." Sangchio shuddered. But she quickly lifted her small face and met his gaze. "Master Zhou, you have power and influence. You could break my father's limbs, even ruin the entire Sang family, but I'm sure you don't want things to escalate that far. In this world, harmony brings profit. I have another solution. Hear me out before you decide." Old Zhou stayed silent, signaling he would listen. Harmony bringing profit was sound logic. Sangchio's heart pounded with anxiety. She maintained a stiff smile, determined not to show any weakness. "A person can thrive in new circumstances. Your deal with my second uncle can extend to my father as well. I guarantee you a 10% share of every income our family earns from now on." She kept a thought to herself. Once she no longer needed to rely on others, she would end this arrangement. After all, old Zhou was merely using second Uncle Sang. Once Sangguijiang was drained dry, second Uncle Sang would hold no value for him. A confident smile tugged at Sangchio's lips. Seeing old Zhou's brows knit tighter, she grew even more composed. "I'm younger, a good student, and have no bad habits. I will be far more useful to you than him in the future." The crease between old Zhou's brows deepened. He weighed her words carefully. Suddenly, he grinned, revealing 2 yellowed front teeth stained by dry tobacco. He turned the 190 yuan and 50 cents over in his palm. "You're still short 20 yuan, do you understand?" The sum was merely 9 yuan less than 200, but for Sangchio to persuade him to abandon second Uncle Sang, there had to be a price. Sangchio caught on, relief washing over her. "Master Zhou, 1 month from today, I will repay the principal of 20 yuan, plus 5 yuan interest. Is that your solemn word?" Old Zhou looked surprised, studying the thin, pale young girl before him once more. In all his years collecting debts, He had never met a debtor who volunteered to raise the interest rate. It is. On this day next month, I will pay you 25 yuan in full, without delay. Does that satisfy you? Sang Chio smiled gently. I'll trust you this once, girl. But if you fail to pay up next month and dare to fool me, your parents, and even your own life, will answer for it. If heaven won't punish you, I will. His voice carried a sharp threat. Still, the girl had piqued his curiosity. A month was not a long time to wait. The side chamber door finally creaked open. Old Joe stepped out with a dry tobacco pipe clamped between his teeth. He nodded to the burly men, then walked away with his hands behind his back. Let's head back. Confused yet too afraid to question him, the men slung their tools over their shoulders and departed. Second Uncle Sang's eyes darted restlessly, and he hurried after them. Once they were out of earshot, he sidled up eagerly. Master Joe, what about my share of the money? Old Joe paused. The image of Sang Chio's confident expression flashed through his mind. He clicked his tongue. What share? You ought to stay away from the gambling dens from now on. You're not young. Find honest work. Second Uncle Sang froze. Was the old man trying to renege on their agreement? Money meant everything to him, more than his wife, his mother, or his own elder brother. Flying into a rage, he grabbed the sleeve of Old Joe's coat. You promised me a cut once the money came through. You can't pretend you never said that. Old Joe wrenched his arm free, his gaze turning icy. Take him away. Teach him what rules mean. Second Uncle Sang trembled violently. His knees buckled, and he was about to scream for mercy when a rag was stuffed into his mouth, muffling all sound. Inside the Sang family courtyard, Sang Guojiang and Su Peijian hurried into the side chamber. Father, Mother, don't worry. I gave him the money, and I only need to pay another 25 yuan next month. Sang Guojiang examined his daughter. Seeing she was unharmed, he relaxed his clenched fists and repeated, That's a relief, a relief. Outside, Li Xiufan pricked up her ears. Learning the debt had not been fully settled, she stamped her feet and shouted. You scheming girl. What trick did you play on Master Zhou to delay payment? Don't expect my second son to cover your shortfall next month. Sang Chio stared at her coldly, saying nothing. What are you glaring at me for? Keep it up and I'll dig your eyes out to feed the crows. Li Xiufan felt a chill creep up her spine under the girl's frigid stare, but quickly brushed it off. She rapped her walking stick against the ground and spat. Still, she wondered to herself, this girl felt like a completely different person lately. Sang Guojiang shifted awkwardly, stepping forward to shield his daughter with his body. He dared not argue with his own mother, so this was the only way he could protect Sang Chio. Grandmother, that's unfair. The gambling debt belongs to second uncle. Father sold everything he could to help him repay it. Instead of being grateful, he only complains. Why not let second uncle pay the 25 yuan next month? My younger sister and I still need food to eat. Li Xiufan's face turned crimson with anger. Shameless child. Who do you think you are to speak to me like this? He's your own second uncle. Do you want to drive him to ruin? Is that so? Can you not tell who is closer to you, your eldest son or your second son? Have you truly lost your senses with age? Sang Chio wore an innocent smile, yet her eyes grew colder. Li Xiufan was overwhelmingly biased, as if Sang Guojiang was not born from her womb. Sang Guojiang finally understood the full picture. He gritted his teeth. Mother, I will settle the debt next month. But from now on, I cannot help second son if he falls into debt again. Li Xiufan's expression shifted, yet she dismissed his words. No matter what happened, she believed her eldest son would never disobey her. Disobeying one's mother was unforgivable disrespect. The neighboring villagers, however, saw everything clearly. Listen to that. They've pushed an honest man to the edge. Second son gambled away money, yet the eldest brother has to bear the burden. Truly, even a mother should not treat her children this unequally. When the villagers' murmurs reached Li Xiufan's ears, she realized everyone was judging her. Glancing around, she saw their disapproving stares. Embarrassed and furious, she waited for Sang Guojiang to defend her as he usually did. When he remained silent, she stormed into the house with a dark face. The villagers offered a few comforting words to Su Peijian before dispersing to their own homes. Father, I'm taking my younger sister to gather firewood. Before Sang Guojiang could reply, she grabbed Nian Yan and vanished into the twilight. Once they reached the small woods, she made no rush to collect branches. Instead, she led her little sister to a hollow tree trunk and climbed inside. She pulled a handkerchief from her pocket and unfolded it, revealing the remaining 40 yuan. This money would sustain their family. It must not be lost. Nian, promise me you won't tell father or mother about this money. It's our secret, all right? Sangchio whispered, leaning her head close to her sister's. Nian blinked hard and pressed a finger to her lips. Relieved, Sangchio pulled out the rabbit-shaped sugar candy she had hidden and handed it to Nian to eat. She tucked the cash into a dry crevice inside the tree hollow. The trunk sheltered the money from wind and rain, safe for the time being, though she planned to retrieve it soon. Once finished, Sangchio held Nian's hand, gathered a bundle of branches, and headed home. As soon as they stepped into the courtyard gate, Hiji's hysterical cries echoed out. We cannot live like this. A thief has broken in and stolen my money. Nian trembled and clung tightly to Sangchio's hand. Sangchio squeezed her palm to soothe her, her gaze turning icy. She walked calmly into the courtyard with Nian, ready to head into the house. But Hiji rushed over and raised her hand to strike. You wicked girl. You stole my savings. Tears welled in Nian's eyes, and her small body shook with fear. Sangchio pushed her sister safely inside the room and shut the door before facing Hiji. Second aunt, you've lost your mind. What nonsense are you talking? Hiji screamed. My hidden money is gone. Who else would take it besides your family? You stole it to pretend you're well off. Hand it over, or I'll beat you within an inch of your life. She rolled up her sleeves, ready to fight. Sangchio would not stand for this. Small and nimble, she dodged easily. Li Xiufan hobbled outside upon hearing the commotion. Have you no shame? Stop shouting. Do you want to bring more disgrace to the Sang family? Mother. She's dishonest and stole all my money. With Li Xiufan there to back her up, Hiji grew bolder. Horrible girl, just like your mother, always up to underhanded tricks. Disgraceful. Sangchio, did you steal your second aunt's money? Li Xiufan lifted her walking stick and swung it at her. Su Peijian rushed forward, taking the blow on her right shoulder. A quiet groan escaped Su Peijian. Flames of anger lit up Sangchio's eyes. She pulled her mother aside, then looked straight at Hiji and smiled faintly. Second aunt, you say your money was stolen. How much was it? How did you earn it? When did you discover it missing? Tell us all the details, and the whole family will help you search. Hiji stammered, unable to answer, her arrogance fading instantly. Li Xiufan's face hardened, and she shot Hiji a venomous look. The atmosphere in the courtyard turned frigid. Suddenly, Li Xiufan raised her stick to strike Hiji. So you've been hiding private funds. You eat my food under my roof, yet you dare keep money from the family. Speak up, how much have you secretly set aside? If you don't confess fully, I'll break your legs. Hiji paled and shouted defiantly. It's not private savings. My family gave it to me. From your family? Li Xiufan paused, still full of suspicion. She favored her second son, yet her daughter-in-law was an outsider and could not be trusted. If Hiji was hiding money, she had to set her straight. Is that true, second aunt? When did your relatives come to visit? Sangchio exposed her lie without hesitation. Li Xiufan's expression darkened further. Hiji stepped back and glared at Sangchio with unbridled hatred. If this were the old Sangchio, she would have lowered her head and retreated. But that girl was gone. Sangchio snatched the earthen jar Hiji held and peeked inside. She pulled out a stack of spirit money. Is this the money you kept? Furious, Hiji grabbed the spirit money and tossed it at her. You wretched girl. You swapped my cash for this. Sangchio brushed away the scraps without letting any touch her clothes, watching Hiji calmly. Second aunt, who can be certain? Perhaps spirits exchanged it. Could it be the late young Master Zhao sent this on purpose? Might he have taken a fancy to your daughter Nanan? Nanan was Hiji and second Uncle Sang's young daughter. As Sangchio finished speaking, Li Xiufan's expression turned strange. Nonsense. The young Master Zhao learned you refused the match, so he replaced my money with spirit money as a warning. Mother, we must arrange Sangchio's marriage to appease him. Otherwise, his restless spirit will plague our family forever. Quick-witted, Hiji seized the chance. She redirected all blame onto Sangchio. Sangchio's eyes turned cold. Second aunt, earlier father begged for funds to settle second uncle's debt, yet you kept your savings hidden. When your cash turned into spirit money, heaven must have disapproved. Or perhaps young Master Zhao meant to help. Silence fell over the courtyard. Neither Li Xiufan nor Hiji knew how to reply. Public discussion of supernatural beliefs had been banned after 1949, yet Li Xiufan was so obsessed with arranging a spirit marriage for Sangchio that she dared to disregard the rule. Heji dared not continue the argument, especially seeing how furiously Xiaofan had become. She shoved Sangqiu into the house and slammed the door shut. Nian stared at her worriedly with big dark eyes. Sangqiu's heart softened. She pulled her younger sister into her arms and whispered comfort. "Don't be afraid. Your second aunt is just distraught." Nian nodded obediently and stayed quiet. Sangqiu retrieved her textbooks on mathematics, physics, and chemistry from the cabinet. It had been years since she studied. Many knowledge points had faded. She planned to take the college entrance examination and attend university. She needed to master every subject thoroughly. Additionally, she still tutored Tian Huayu. To keep this tutoring position, she had to improve his grades. The family needed money everywhere, and she could not afford to lose this work. Sangqiu told Nian to play quietly, then sat at the table to study. When her eyes grew tired, she drafted the lesson plan she would use for Tian Huayu that week. The next morning, shortly after Sangqiu finished breakfast, a shrill yell echoed from the courtyard. "My son will never work as a cook." Second uncle sang, "You can forget it." "A cook?" Sangqiu paused. She suddenly remembered this moment. Master Wu was about to take on apprentices. In her past life, she sought work with him after dropping out of school to avoid starvation. Before she could repay her mentor, Master Wu passed away, leaving her filled with regret. Now she had a second chance to meet him again and hone her cooking skills once more. "Father, mother, I'm heading into town. What business do you have there?" Sangguojiang frowned. "Leave the money troubles alone for now. Focus on studying." "I'm not going to look for work," Sangqiu explained. "I just want to wander around town to clear my head." "Aren't you taking Nian?" She shook her head. She promised to bring her little sister sugar candy on her return and coaxed Nian into doing her homework. Once she reached town, Sangqiu followed her memories toward Master Wu's restaurant, where the apprentice selection contest would be held. She arrived a little late. The restaurant was packed with onlookers. Master Wu chatted cheerfully among the crowd, still lean as she remembered. Seeing him brought a sting of tears to her eyes. "The time has come. I will explain the contest rules. All contestants head to the back kitchen. Everyone else waits out front. Each dish you prepare will be brought out for the crowd to judge. Whoever earns the highest score will become my apprentice," Master Wu announced personally. The contestants lined up and walked toward the kitchen. Sangqiu followed them. Suddenly, the man in front halted. Distracted, Sangqiu bumped into his back, nearly dizzy from the impact. Several men snickered. "Well now, what's a young girl doing out in public trying to compete?" Sangqiu rubbed her forehead and retorted calmly. "Does being a girl mean I lack arms and legs? Can I not lift a wok or chop vegetables?" The men fell silent, unable to come up with a response, and turned away grumbling. In this era, people disapproved of young women working outside the home, yet cooking was an honest trade. "Everyone will be grouped into teams of 4, 4 teams total. Lineup is called." The speaker was Zhou Laojiu, a thin man with narrow eyes. Sangqiu recognized him as a smooth, tactful local who hosted major village events. Sangqiu belonged to the 4th group. She waited patiently while the first 3 teams competed. She knew Master Wu would only seriously consider 2 or 3 contestants from the earlier rounds. There were no requirements for what dish to prepare. Sangqiu glanced at the bamboo baskets of ingredients, which were almost empty. Only 2 slices of fresh winter melon remained. An idea formed. She would make braised vegetarian winter melon. Master Wu looked nothing like a chef. He was far too slender. Most cooks in this era grew plump from constant access to meat. Sangqiu picked up the winter melon slices, peeled them, and cut them neat. She sliced several garlic cloves thin. Once prepared, she heated the wok. When the oil reached medium heat, she poured in a small amount. Winter melon absorbs oil easily, but too much would make the dish greasy. She set down the oil bottle and tossed in the garlic. Sizzling sounds drew the crowd's attention. As the only female contestant, she attracted onlookers, most of whom came to watch for amusement. Look at her, ignoring the small piece of pork and choosing cheap winter melon instead. Don't mock her. Maybe she's never tasted meat. Haha, a cook who's never eaten meat? Can you even call that a cook? Go find somewhere else to loiter. Master Wu spoke up, and the crowd scattered immediately. No one dared cross him. Sangqiu smiled toward Master Wu, who stood with his hands behind his back. She knew her mentor appeared stern but was kind at heart. He had stepped in to defend her. Master Wu saw her smile and paused, struck by an unfamiliar feeling. The garlic released a rich aroma. She added the translucent winter melon slices, which steamed loudly. Sang Chio flipped the pieces until all sides turned golden brown. She poured in a little soy sauce, sprinkled a pinch of salt and soft sugar, then covered the wok with a lid. The secret to braised winter melon was slow simmering with the lid sealed. 7 or 8 minutes later, Sang Chio lifted the lid. Thick, glossy sauce clung to the winter melon slices, which had turned a rich chestnut red. She stirred continuously as she reduced the sauce, then plated the dish shortly after, sprinkling green onions on top. Every slice of winter melon was coated in ample sauce, steaming hot and filling the air with an inviting aroma. Sang Chio had even arranged the slices neatly on the plate. The other contestants paid it little mind. A simple dish paled in comparison to their chicken, duck, and fish. Once all competitors finished cooking, Chef Wu walked over to sample each dish in turn. When he reached Sang Chio's plate, he casually picked up a piece of winter melon and took a bite. It melted on his tongue, tender and incredibly soft. He picked up a second slice, then a third. Zhou Laojiu quickly reminded him, there are people outside waiting to taste the food. Leave some for them. Chef Wu set down his chopsticks and nodded repeatedly. This dish suited his tastes perfectly. Young lady, your timing for this winter melon is impeccable. It's savory and fragrant the moment it touches the mouth. Though it contains no meat, it tastes better than any meat dish. Well done. The onlookers were stunned. This was the first time anyone had heard Chef Wu praise a contestant among so many dishes. Sang Chio's eyes stung. It had been far too long since her old mentor had commented on her cooking. The braised vegetarian winter melon was carried outside. Soon enough, the empty plate was brought back. Everyone out there is begging for another serving of your winter melon. Chef Wu smiled, his eyes crinkling, though a trace of regret lingered in his gaze. He murmured without thinking, if only you were a boy, young lady. The others breathed quiet sighs of relief. No matter how skilled her cooking was, Chef Wu would never take a female apprentice. Sang Chio remained calm. She understood her mentor's reasons for seeking an apprentice. Beyond passing down his culinary skills, he hoped his pupil would care for him in his old age and handle his final arrangements. Chef Wu had never married and had no children. I am a woman, yet I make this vow. If you take me as your apprentice, I will tend to you in your later years and see to all your funeral rites. Her voice was clear and steady as she spoke. Silence fell over the room, followed by mocking laughter. What can a woman earn? All you're good for is cooking meals and raising children. Talking about funeral tablets is nothing but empty words. Others joined in the jeer, quick to follow the first speaker's lead. Sang Chio ignored them, her bright eyes fixed on her mentor. Chef Wu considered for a moment, unaffected by the jeering men. He shot them a sharp look, silencing their taunts. He then turned back to Sang Chio and nodded. You possess far more resolve than these gossiping men. The men who had mocked her paled, publicly embarrassed. One man objected, Chef Wu, what do you mean by that? Do you intend to accept her? But you said from the start you would not take female disciples. Before Chef Wu could reply, Sang Chio retorted, the choice of apprentice belongs solely to Chef Wu. Judging ability merely by gender is truly unfair. Besides, whose dish here tastes better than mine? Chef Wu offered his verdict. All of them fall far short of you. What's more, you outshone all their meat dishes with just a single vegetarian plate. Sang Chio hastened to plead her case earnest. I will be honest about my hopes. You remind me of my father. If you accept me as your apprentice, I will treat you as my own father and care for you devotedly. Chef Wu was moved. He stared at her for a long moment, then reached out and gently patted the top of her head. You are a sensible girl. That was acceptance. Relief washed over Sang Chio, and a genuine smile spread across her lips. She dropped to her knees with a soft thud. Thank you, master. Chef Wu hummed and told her to stand. The apprenticeship ceremony was complete. Several men were unwilling and urged him to take on more students, but he refused outright. One worthy apprentice is more than enough. The others had no choice but to leave, disgruntled. Leftover food was distributed to the townsfolk outside to avoid waste. Chef Wu walked down the street alongside Sang Chio. You say I remind you of your father. I wonder if that is true. At the mention of Sang Guijiang, warmth filled Sang Chio's heart. Chef Wu noticed and smiled. You are a devoted daughter. Family means everything to me, Sang Chio answered. She followed behind him, confused. Master, where are we headed? Chef Wu smiled. Now that you are my apprentice, I'd like to visit your home first. Sang Chio was about to reply when she caught sight of a man's figure in the distance. Her face drained of color, and she chased after him without hesitation. It was him. In her past life, after she was forced into an unwanted marriage, she had watched him from afar countless times, drowning in sorrow. She would recognize him anywhere. The figure vanished around a corner. Sang-chio's throat tightened, and she called out desperately, "Wait, you." An arm suddenly pulled her back. She snapped out of her daze. When she scanned her surroundings, Yu Zhongyan was nowhere to be seen. For a moment, she had imagined it all. "Who are you looking for?" Worry flickered across Chef Wu's face as he frowned. Sang-chio let out a weak laugh. She stared wistfully at the alley where the figure had disappeared. There was no one there. She must have misseen Yu Zhongyan, the deepest wound of her previous life. She had begged countless times for a second chance to meet him before she fell into ruin, to know him, grow close, and fall in love. Now she had been granted a fresh start, unburdened by the misfortunes of her past. It felt like a dream. Still, she could not afford to make a single wrong turn. "Let us go to your home," Chef Wu said, choosing not to press her further. Privately, he resolved to look out for Sang-chio from then on. Sang-chio composed herself and pushed her wandering thoughts aside. She blinked, her demeanor returning to normal. "Understood, master." They walked several li until they reached a poor, backward village. When Chef Wu saw the muddy paths, his expression darkened. He was not wealthy himself, yet his home was far more comfortable than this village. It puzzled him how such a filial, sensible girl like Sang-chio could grow up here. Sang-chio led Chef Wu into the courtyard. Nian knelt by the wall, absorbed in watching a line of ants carry food. "Where are mother and father?" Nian turned around. She was about to grin, but froze when she spotted the stranger. She stepped back nervously and fled into the house to hide. Sang-chio explained to Chef Wu, "This is my younger sister, born to the same parents. She's very shy and hides away around strangers. Please do not mind her." Chef Wu paid it no mind, yet he grew even more curious. Two sisters from the same household, yet their personalities could not be more different. Sang-chio heard the sound of stir, frying coming from the kitchen, and guessed her parents were cooking. She headed toward the cooking shed. She lifted the cloth curtain. Thick smoke swirled inside. The small space trapped every wisp of smoke whenever the stove was lit. "Who's there? Is that Xiaoqiu back? I'll call your sister for dinner in a moment." "Mother, come out first." "I have something important to say," Sang-chio called out, knowing it would be hard for her mother to hear over the crackling stove. Su-Peijian quickly added water and covered the pot. Wiping her hands on her apron, she stepped outside. "What's the matter? Is something serious?" She caught sight of Chef Wu and panicked, assuming he had come to demand repayment. She tensed and pulled Sang-chio behind her protectively. "We agreed we would pay you back next month." She stood guard over Sang-chio like a hen defending her chicks. Sang-chio's eyes grew moist as her frail mother shielded her. She was endlessly grateful for this second life. "Mother, you misunderstood. This is my new master, Chef Wu." Su-Peijian stared in shock. She thought her daughter had only gone into town to clear her head. How had she returned with a master? "You must be Xiaoqiu's mother. I run a restaurant in town. Everyone calls me Chef Wu out of politeness. I took Xiaoqiu on as my apprentice today, so I came to meet your family," Chef Wu said, touched by the mother's fierce protectiveness of her child. Just then, Sang-gujiang walked into the courtyard carrying a bundle of firewood on his back. "Wife, who is this?" Su-Peijian hurried to help him set down the firewood and whispered what Sang-chio had told her. Sang-gujiang's expression turned grim. He had heard rumors a famous chef in town was taking on apprentices. Sang-er had planned to send his son, but now Sang-chio, who struggled with her studies, wanted to become a cook instead. Anger rose in him instantly. He grabbed Sang-chio's arm and chided her. "I told you to focus on your studies. Why do you insist on learning to cook? Can you not listen?" Sang-chio had expected this reaction and explained calmly. "Father, I have no intention of giving up school. Cooking is simply my passion. I can learn it in my spare time. You have my word." Sang-gujiang calmed a little. His greatest wish was for Sang-chio to escape the hardship of village life through education. Still, a solid skill was valuable. Having multiple talents could not hurt. Coming to terms with it, he urged his wife to prepare extra dishes. Now that Chef Wu is Sang-chio's master, they must host him properly and observe proper etiquette. Chef Wu was observant. He was surprised to learn Sang-gujiang hoped Sang-chio would continue schooling, yet he showed no outward reaction and chatted amicably with him. Meat rarely appeared on the Sang family's dining table. To honor their guest, Su Peijian borrowed several eggs in stir, fried them a rare treat. Chef Wu sat on the heated brick bed alongside Sangua Jiang, talking easily. He praised Sang Chio's braised vegetarian winter melon repeatedly. Sangua Jiang beamed. Nothing made him prouder than hearing his daughter praised. When Sang Chio mentioned promising to arrange her master's funeral affairs, Sangua Jiang froze and glanced toward her. She met his gaze firmly. Master only has me as his apprentice. It is only right I care for him until his final days. Sangua Jiang turned to Chef Wu. The girl speaks the truth. If she ever disobeys you, you may discipline her as you see fit. Chef Wu realized Sang Chio had not told her parents about the apprenticeship beforehand, yet Sangua Jiang's words signified his approval. He nodded. The whole family was kind-hearted. No wonder they had raised such a wonderful daughter as Sang Chio. After the meal, Sang Chio saw Chef Wu off. She steeled herself before walking back into the courtyard. She assumed her father would question her further, yet he only reminded her to study diligently and said nothing more. Sang Chio's heart softened. Father, I will work hard at school. Relieved, Sangua Jiang went off to tend to his chores. The busiest farming season had passed. Sang Chio would return to school the following week. She had studied extensively in her previous life, and this time, she was determined to pass the university entrance examination. By the wall, Nian scratched patterns into the ground with a stone, fully focused. Little sister, do you love drawing? Sang Chio walked over and picked up a sharp stone of her own. Nian nodded obediently. Drawing brought her joy. Let's draw together, eh, Jia? Sang Chio smiled. The stone left pale white marks on the concrete wall. One day, she would buy her younger sister the finest colored pencils so she could create vibrant, beautiful artwork. After dinner, Sang Chio sorted her textbooks and drafted a daily study schedule to prepare for returning to class in 7 days' time. School started soon after. Sang Chio maintained a steady routine traveling between home and school. Tian Huayu, who had crossed paths with her several times, now greeted her when they met, confusing their classmates. Every Saturday, Sang Chio headed to Chef Wu's restaurant without fail. This was her first official lesson. Chef Wu had prepared ingredients and smiled warmly when he saw her arrive. You're quite early. Sang Chio grinned and glanced toward the chopping board. Master, where's the meat? I can tell you already possess a solid foundation in cooking. We will skip the basic lessons. Today, I will teach you vegetable carving to elevate the presentation of your dishes. Sang Chio froze. In her past life, her mentor had begun training strictly with foundational knife skills. It seemed some things were already changing, altered by her second chance. She pushed the thought aside and focused immediately on learning the carving techniques. The work was tedious, yet she remained patient. Chef Wu watched her and grew fond of her. He had worried the young girl would lack perseverance or lose interest quickly, but his fears proved unfounded. Sang Chio quickly carved a small flower from a carrot and set it gently on a white plate. She turned to her master with a smile. I've finished one. Please take a look. Chef Wu glanced over casually, expecting an uneven, clumsy attempt from a beginner. He blinked in surprise. The flower was vivid and lovely. Minor imperfections existed, yet they were easy to overlook, especially for someone attempting carving for the very first time. You made this? Sang Chio nodded honestly. Carving was not difficult for her, yet her skills had grown rusty after years of disuse. Chef Wu could not stop admiring the small carving. Has anyone taught you this before? Sang Chio hesitated, then shook her head. According to the timeline, there was no one around who could have taught her vegetable carving. Chef Wu was overjoyed and patted her head several times, laughing aloud. He had truly taken on a treasure of an apprentice. Sang Chio stayed for another hour before bidding her master farewell. She still needed to go tutor Tian Huayu. When she reached his house, a rich aroma drifted through the air. Li Lan carried out a pot of corn and bone soup and greeted her warmly. Xiao Chio, I hate to trouble you tutoring my slow-witted boy every week. You must be worn out. Come have a bowl, it's still hot and fresh. Sang Chio's cheeks flushed. She shook her head politely. Aunt Li, there is no need to say that. This is my work. Li Lan refused to take no for an answer and waited until Sang Chio finished the soup before letting her head into Tian Huayu's bedroom. She pushed open the door and froze, her mind going blank. More than just Tian Huayu sat beside the window. A man with perfect side profile, dressed in a plain white shirt, sat next to him, speaking quietly. He stood tall and straight with a high, refined nose. He turned toward her at the sound of the door opening. Elegant, handsome features carried an innate quiet dignity. Sangchio did not know where to place her hands. Her heart hammered wildly in her chest, and her usually quick tongue fell silent. Tian Huayu broke the awkward silence, brightening when he saw her. Zhangyan, gee, this is the tutor I told you about. She's incredibly smart and consistently ranks first in our class. Yu Zhangyan's eyes flickered with appreciation. It's you. Hello. I am Xiaoyu's cousin. Sangchio's nose burned. Tears threatened to spill. She quickly lowered her head to hide her overwhelming emotion. Hello. Please call me Sangchio. Your tutor has arrived. Pay close attention during the lesson, Yu Zhangyan instructed Tian Huayu gently. Don't get distracted. It was clear Tian Huayu was close to Yu Zhangyan. He wanted to ask his cousin to stay, yet with Sangchio present, he held back and nodded obediently. Yu Zhangyan walked past Sangchio and offered a polite, graceful nod as he left. Shock lingered inside Sangchio for a long while. It was only when Tian Huayu asked about their lesson plan that she snapped back to reality. Gradually, she focused on tutoring. She needed to separate her personal feelings from her duties. She had promised Li Lan she would help Tian Huayu improve his grades, and she intended to keep that promise. 50 minutes passed, and class reached its break. Sangchio stepped out to fetch drinking water. She spotted Yu Zhangyan chatting with Li Lan, both wearing relaxed smiles. Li Lan smiled at Sangchio. Tutoring must tire you. My son is slow to learn. Thank you for all your effort, Xiaoqiu. Sangchio's cheeks stayed pink. Her almond eyes drifted toward Yu Zhangyan involuntarily, glistening. To meet him again in this new life was a blessing. Mid-conversation, Yu Zhangyan sensed her gaze and looked up. The young girl stared at him absent-mindedly. He smiled gently. Miss Sang, is there something on my face? Sangchio snapped out of her daze. She had been staring so intently she had not noticed boiling water overflow the cup, scalding 2 blisters onto her fingers. No. I zoned out. I'm so sorry. Seeing Yu Zhangyan had flooded her mind with memories of her previous life, making her lose track of everything. She still owed old Zhou 25 yuan. The thought pulled her back. She returned to the bedroom and continued tutoring Tian Huayu. Time flew by. After explaining the final exercise, Sangchio packed her school bag to leave. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw Yu Zhangyan sitting by the window, arranging a chess set. Sunset light spilled over him, casting soft glow across his striking, almost illustrated features. Sangchio swallowed softly. She was not accomplished enough to stand beside Yu Zhangyan, not yet. In this lifetime, no one would tear them apart. After leaving Tian Huayu's home, Sangchio did not head straight back. Instead, she traveled into town to apply as a chef at Dingxiang restaurant. The deadline to repay old Zhou drew closer, and anxiety gnawed at her. She had to gather the 25 yuan before their agreement expired. It was peak dinner hour and Dingxiang restaurant was packed with diners. Hungry, Sangchio hurried into the back kitchen. The owner, Qin Jianjun, adjusted his glasses. Young lady, who are you looking for? Sangchio straightened her collar and stood squarely before Qin Jianjun. I'm Wu Yidao's female apprentice. I've come to apply for a cook's position. You? Qin Jianjun twitched his mouth, looking Sangchio up and down. Wu Yidao was a renowned chef in town. He'd heard the chef had recently taken on an apprentice, yet he never imagined it would be a young woman, and one who looked so youthful. Could she be a fraud using Wu Yidao's name to swindle people? Girl, you look pretty young. Can't you find some other line of work? Qin Jianjun meant well, and he spoke earnestly. If your family's truly struggling, I can give you some money and send you to the relief station. Sangchio froze for a moment. You've misunderstood. I'm no fraud. I really, at least come up with a halfway believable lie. Qin Jianjun cut her off. Others might not know Wu Yidao, but I do. He never takes female apprentices, least of all young girls like you. As he spoke, he pulled a 5 yuan note from the wallet clipped to his belt and tossed it to her. Take this. Buy yourself something to eat. Be sensible and stop lying or you could get arrested. Sangchio didn't know whether to laugh or cry. So she'd been mistaken for a con artist? She was about to explain when a young waiter dressed in an apprentice's uniform rushed into the kitchen, looking troubled. The guest at table 3 wants chicken wings stuffed with fried rice. Chicken wings stuffed with fried rice? The several chefs in the kitchen exchanged bewildered glances. Having lived half their lives, none of them had ever heard of such a dish. How do you even make that? What's chicken wings stuffed with fried rice? Restaurant owner Qin Jianjun was already frustrated, and he waved his hand repeatedly. We don't serve that dish here. We can't make it. The waiter grew even more distressed. That's exactly what I told him, but he's set on ordering it and refuses to leave. The chefs were stuck. They'd never even heard of the dish, so how could they prepare it? Just as they were about to head out to apologize to the customer, a clear female voice halted them. I can make chicken wings stuffed with fried rice. Qin Jianjun grew even more irritable. Don't stir up trouble, girl. If you displease an important customer, you can't take responsibility for it. He'd meant to persuade Sang Qiu to leave, but she stood her ground. I truly am Wu Yidao's last apprentice, and I really can make this dish. Can you trust me just this once? It's not that we don't believe you. You're just a young girl. Who'd believe you're a skilled cook? One chef sounded helpless, yet the guest outside kept pressing them. With no other choice, they relented and let Sang Qiu try. Inside the kitchen, Qin Jianjun rolled a cigarette. Girl, if you really can make this chicken wing dish, I'll pay you 20 yuan. Sang Qiu's eyes lit up. 20 yuan? That was easy money. Do you mean it? Qin Jianjun let out a cold huff. I mean every word. Sang Qiu broke into a grin. With that money, she could redeem the quilt her mother had pawned. In front of all the chefs, she took 2 chicken wings from the green refrigerator and carefully removed the bones. She stuffed freshly cooked fried rice into the hollow wings. Knowing there was no Orleans marinade available in this era, she rubbed a mixture of fine chili powder, 5 spice powder, cornstarch, and minced onion evenly over the wings. Then she placed them in the oven to roast. A rich aroma filled the room. The chefs stared in shock, never dreaming chicken wings could be prepared in such a way. Qin Jianjun was equally stunned. This girl was barely 16 or 17, yet she could cook a dish he'd never even heard of. Her master was the famous chef Wu Yidao. Clearly, she had boundless potential. Once the wings finished roasting, Sang Qiu sprinkled sesame seeds over them, arranged them on a plate, and sent the waiter to carry the dish out. Every movement she made was smooth and confident. Even Ding Xianglu's head chef knew he could not match her skill, let alone Qin Jianjun. May I ask if what you promised still holds? Of course, Qin Jianjun said excitedly. Go wait for me in a private room. I'll come talk to you about employment shortly. Sang Qiu agreed and headed for the private room. Qin Jianjun turned to the other staff. I want to hire this cook. Any objections? The honest-looking Chef Wang stirred lard in a wok. None at all. You learn something new every day. We've never seen the dish that girl made, and we ought to learn from her. Qin Jianjun laughed. Just then, the waiter hurried back into the kitchen. Boss, the guest at table 3 wants to meet the chef who made this dish. Meet the chef. Panic flashed across Qin Jianjun's face. His first thought was that Sang Qiu must not meet the customer. Ding Xianglu was the most renowned restaurant in town. Word would spread if people found out they employed a cook under 18, and that would ruin their reputation. An idea came to him. He would send Chef Wang, Ding Xianglu's top cook, instead. Chef Wang took off his apron and stepped out. The guest at table 3 was a handsome young man with neat, delicate features. He looked Chef Wang up and down and said quietly, I want to see the person who cooked this. Chef Wang grew flustered. He hated pretending to be someone else, yet he had no choice. Sir, I'm the chef who made the stuffed chicken wings. What can I do for you? Yu Zhongyan's fine brows drew together. It wasn't you. Now that he had been found out, Chef Wang let out a quiet breath of relief. I won't lie to you. The cook is actually a young girl. If you truly wish to meet her, I can take you there. Yu Zhongyan's heart stirred. Lead the way. Inside the private room, Qin Jianjun pulled out 2 10-yuan Great Unity banknotes and handed them to Sang Qiu. She tucked the money into her purse and was about to leave when Yu Zhongyan stepped inside. When their eyes met again, both felt a jolt. Miss Sang, we meet once more. Yu Zhongyan smiled, yet his tone carried a faint sense of distance. Sang Qiu offered a polite smile in return. She had tried her hardest to suppress the longing she felt for him, but her eyes grew damp despite herself. You're the young cook who made the stuffed chicken wings? Yu Zhongyan said calmly. My mother has fallen seriously ill and cannot keep any food down. I wish to hire you as our family cook to prepare nourishing meals for her. I can pay 200 yuan a month and I can advance the full sum right away. You will only need to prepare 3 meals a day for my mother. As he spoke of his mother, Yu Zhongyan's nose stung with sorrow. Sang Qiu stood frozen, flooded with memories from her past life. She could never forget the scornful stares she endured when she followed Yu Zhongyan home to meet his family, nor the words his elder brother had spoken to her. Miss Sang, with your family background, you cannot hope to be with Yu Zhongyan. You won't even fit into a circle. How could this relationship ever work? That very night, Sang Chio had broken things off with him. She was not one to drag matters out. Yet she would never forget how Yu Zhongyan had refused to accept the breakup. He had even been driven out of his family home and forced to live on the streets because of her. Miss Sang. Yu Zhongyan's voice pulled her back to the present. What is your decision? I cannot accept, Sang Chio replied firmly. It was not because of Yu's family. She was apprenticed to Chef Wu, needed to tutor Tian Huayu, and planned to work part-time at Dingxianglu. Her schedule was already packed, leaving no spare time to work as a private cook. Yu Zhongyan had not expected such an immediate refusal. Why? Is the salary too low, or is there another reason? Sang Chio hesitated briefly. I don't have enough time. Yu Zhongyan frowned. Could Sang Chio be in desperate need of money? It seemed he had arrived too late. Time is not a problem, Qin Jianjun, who had remained silent until now, spoke earnestly. Truth be told, working full-time at Dingxianglu would be a waste of your talent. He paused and continued. Here is my proposal. You don't need to come to the restaurant every day. Just drop by occasionally to write down new recipes. I will pay 30 yuan for each dish. If a recipe sells well, I will raise the price. What do you think? After finishing, Qin Jianjun pulled another 10 yuan note from his pocket and handed it to Sang Chio. I keep my word. As soon as you hand over a recipe, I will settle payment immediately. Sang Chio accepted the money, then turned to Yu Zhongyan. I agree to your offer. After leaving Dingxianglu, Sang Chio securely stowed the 230 yuan and headed for Chef Wu's restaurant. Chef Wu was busy in the shop when he spotted Sang Chio walking toward him, grinning brightly, brimming with youthful energy. The moment she saw him, Sang Chio said excitedly, Master. I earned money today. She carefully pulled 3 10 yuan banknotes out of layers of cloth wrapping, showing them to him like a treasure. She held out one 10 yuan note to him. Please take this as my apprenticeship gift to you. Chef Wu let out a huff. She had a good heart, yet he had no intention of taking the money. He knew the young girl's family struggled financially. I have no use for this. Keep it for yourself. Sang Chio pouted, as she had expected the stubborn old man to refuse. Do you think this amount is too little? Don't worry, once I earn more money, I will properly take care of you. That won't be necessary. Chef Wu waved his hand repeatedly. I am your master. Seeing you succeed brings me joy. No money is needed. Buy good food for your family instead. It suddenly dawned on Sang Chio. She still needed to redeem the quilt. She tried forcing the 10 yuan note into Chef Wu's hand, but he firmly refused, pushing her out of the shop. Sang Chio sighed. She pushed the thought aside. Retrieving the quilt was her priority. Sang Chio hurried all the way to the pawnshop. The mustached pawnbroker's expression changed the second he laid eyes on her. What took you so long? Sang Chio laid the 3 10 yuan notes on the glass counter. I've come to redeem my quilt. The pawnbroker frowned tightly. You're too late. Someone bought it already. What? Sang Chio stood stunned. She remained gloomy all the way home. When she reached the village, darkness had fallen. Soup Asian set a bowl of reheated cabbage soup in front of Sang Chio. Why are you home so late? Sang Chio wore a dejected expression, on the verge of tears. What's wrong? Soup Asian frowned. Did someone bully you? I'll send your father to settle scores with them. Mother, I can't get the quilt back. Tears welled in Sang Chio's eyes. She felt terrible for her mother. That quilt had been her dowry. She never should have pawned it. Soup Asian sank into quiet thought for a moment, then smiled and pulled Sang Chio into an embrace. It's not such a big matter. As long as my little Autumn is safe and sound, I want for nothing else. Mother, Sang Chio wanted to cry even more. She felt guilty toward her mother. Soup Asian gently tucked stray hair behind Sang Chio's ear. Child, you've been pushing yourself too hard these days. Don't rush to earn money. Don't wear yourself out. Sang Chio shook her head. I'm not tired, Mother. I'm going to earn enough money to buy you a big house. She resolved to give her father, mother, and younger sister a comfortable, prosperous life. Yet, Soup Asian only wished for her daughter's safety. Your words warm my heart. As long as our family stays together, I ask for nothing more. Overnight, dawn broke. The village rooster crowed just once, and Sang Chio was already dressed and ready to head out. Sang Nianyan was tending the stove. When she saw her elder sister fully clothed, preparing to leave. Sister, where are you going? Sang Chio smiled. I have somewhere to go. I'll bring you a treat when I come back. At the mention of snacks, Sang Nianyan tossed more twigs into the fire. Bring me an ice pop. Sang Chio agreed without hesitation. No problem. Hiji had just woken up. She opened the door and caught sight of Sang Cho leaving early. She quickly shook her husband awake. Sang Leoi was still lost in sleep and grew annoyed at being disturbed. Crazy woman. What is it? Don't ruin my good dream. Hiji dragged him to his feet. I just saw that useless girl heading out at the crack of dawn. Where do you think she's off to? Let her go wherever she wants. Sang Leoi mumbled drowsily, sounding irritable. Can you use your brain to think about this? Hiji's voice turned bitter. She still resented Sang Chio over the money she had lost some time ago. Her mother, in Loli Fingji, watched her like a thief these days. Hiding private savings had become far more difficult. It's all that little brat's fault. And your mother. They keep making things hard for me. I can't live like this. Hiji threw a tantrum. Only then did Sang Leoi fully wake up. Stop shouting, will you? Speaking of Sang Chio filled Sang Leoi with anger. Hadn't that useless girl said something to Master Zhou? Not only had Master Zhou refused to give him his cut, he had also banned him from the gambling house. That girl won't be able to cause trouble for much longer. I'll tell mother right away to arrange her marriage to the son of the Zhao family. She'll end up a lonely widow for the rest of her life. The couple plotted against Sang Chio. Meanwhile, Sang Chio had already arrived at Master Zhou's gate. She knocked, and Master Zhou answered the door himself. When he saw Sang Chio, Master Zhou's face lit up. It's you. He had not expected the girl to actually come and pay him back, and a surge of respect rose within him. Sang Chio handed over the 25 yuan she had prepared. Master Zhou frowned. He enjoyed working with sharp people, and though Sang Chio was young, she was quick-witted. I have a favor to ask you, Sang Chio stated her reason for coming. Speak. Master Zhou was a prominent figure in the village, with connections even in the county town. She believed her requests would not be difficult for him. I want to find out who bought my mother's dowry quilt. Also, I hope you can find steady work. For my father, something that will let him support our family. As she finished speaking, she pulled another 5 yuan note from her pocket. I promised before that I would give you 10% of every income one earn, and I won't go back on my word. Master Zhou smiled. What an intelligent, honest young lady. That can be arranged easily. In the afternoon, Sang Chio stayed indoors drafting recipes. She would start working for the Yu family in a few days. So she needed to prepare thoroughly. A sharp quarrel echoed through the yard. Several burly men carrying clubs marched into the Sang family courtyard. Bring Sang Guifu out here. Sang Leoi cowered behind Hiji. I am Sang Guifu. Can you collect the debt from my elder brother instead? He has plenty of money. Cut the nonsense. The two men cared nothing for his pleas. They had come to collect what was owed. Pay up, or we'll break your legs. Without further words, they dragged Sang Leoi to the ground and struck him with their clubs. Sang Leoi screamed in agony. Who dares harm my son? Li Xiufan hobbled out leaning on her cane, followed by Sang Guojiang and his wife. Seeing her son lying bloodied on the ground, Li Xiufan's heart ached terribly. She banged her cane against the ground and shouted. Weren't the debts already paid off? Paid off? There's still a balance left. The two men pulled out the IOU without mercy. Old lady, it's written clearly in black and white. If he refuses to repay what he owes, he deserves to have his legs broken. Li Xiufan panicked. She dared not provoke these intimidating men. As they prepared to beat Sang Leoi further, she turned all her anger towards Sang Guojiang and his family. Are you just going to stand by and watch your brother get beaten? Sang Guojiang wore a cold expression. After everything that had happened before, his heart had turned cold. The second branch of the family was like wolves who could never be satisfied, no matter how much you fed them. Mother, I cannot help him. Beast, I raised you for nothing. He's your own younger brother. How can you have no conscience at all? Li Xiufan threw herself onto the ground and wailed, drawing a crowd of villagers. Sang Chio heard the commotion and stepped into the yard. She saw Sang Leoi covered in wounds on the ground, with Hiji kneeling and begging for mercy. None of this came as a surprise to her. What's going on? Why is second uncle lying on the ground? The moment Li Xiufan laid eyes on Sang Chio, her rage flared. She pointed at Sang Chio and shouted insults. You useless girl. I should have married you off to the Zhao family long ago. If not for you, my son would never be suffering this beating. Li Xiufan lay on the ground crying and screaming. Sang Chio could only feel amused. Grandmother, how is second uncle's beating my fault? He owes money of his own free will. It serves him right if he gets hurt for refusing to repay his debts. You insolent child. Old Mrs. Sang raised her cane to strike Sang Chio, but Sang Chio dodged. You worthless girl. I'll beat you senseless. Old Mrs. Sang chased after Sangchio, spewing foul words. When she failed to catch her, she turned toward the unsuspecting Sang Niannian. Sang Niannian let out a cry. Old Mrs. Sang's cane struck her forehead, and blood streamed down her face. Little sister. Sangchio rushed forward and pulled Sang Niannian tightly into her arms. Her younger sister was easily frightened, and she began to weep. Sangchio covered Sang Niannian's ears. Sister will take you inside. She was about to lead her sister away when someone stuck out a leg, tripping her. Sangchio fell to the ground, but reacted quickly to shield her sister's head. Li Xiufan pulled her cane back and shouted viciously. Get out of my sight, both of you. You won't spare a few coins to help your uncle. Your whole family is good for nothing. Say that one more time. Su Peijian's eyes turned red. This was the first time Sangchio had seen her mother lose her temper. As far as she could remember, her mother had always been gentle and quiet, never arguing even when old Mrs. Sang treated her unfairly. For her to flare up now, she must have reached her breaking point. What right do you have to speak here, you woman who cannot bear more sons? I won't let you insult my daughters. Su Peijian shouted at Li Xiufan. She had endured unfair treatment in silence for far too long. If not for her 2 children and her husband, she would have left the family ages ago. Li Xiufan, you have no conscience. My daughter and I treated you well, yet you only care about that good-for-nothing Sanguifu. To pay off his gambling debts, you pushed my daughter to the brink of taking her own life. Thank goodness she survived. If she hadn't, I would have dragged you down with me. Li Xiufan had never expected her meek eldest daughter-in-law to stand up to her. She pointed at Su Peijian and yelled, Ungrateful woman. Do you believe I can make Guojiang divorce you? Whatever Peijian says, I stand by it. Sang Guojiang stepped forward to shield his wife and daughters. Mother, if you see no place for your eldest son in your heart, let Guofu take care of you in your old age. What do you mean? Li Xiufan stared in shock. Are you trying to split up the family? It's for the best for everyone. Sang Guojiang's heart ached as he thought about all the grievances his wife and daughters had endured over the years. You heartless boy. If you leave, no one will look after this old woman. Li Xiufan tossed her walking cane aside and slumped onto the ground, wailing loudly. Sang Guojiang's face turned cold. He had brought up splitting the family many times before, yet Li Xiufan always refused. She even invoked his late father and threw tantrums to pressure him. He had long since grown numb to it. Guojiang. Su Peijian stepped forward and took his hand. Isn't there an old house by the riverbank at the village entrance? We can move there. Bah. You barren woman, how dare you tell my son to move out? Li Xiufan grew frantic. It was not that she cared about Sang Guojiang. If he moved away, there would be no one to support her in her old age, nor anyone to pay off Sang Laodi's debts. Mother, don't speak like that, or I'll lose my temper. This time, Sang Guojiang stood firmly by his wife and daughters. He said resolutely, I can take nothing from the family. Let everything go to the second brother. I cannot spend another day living like this. Without waiting for the old woman's consent, he turned and walked into the house to pack his belongings. Sangchio helped her younger sister follow him. There was truly nothing worth clinging to in this home. Li Xiufan clutched her chest, nearly collapsing from rage. Haji already had her own plans. Mother, let eldest brother's family leave if they want to. She glanced at the east courtyard where Sang Guojiang lived. Though the house was old and in a remote spot, her son was growing up and could not keep sharing a room with them forever. Sang Guojiang walked out of the east courtyard carrying his bundled clothes. Li Xiufan shouted angrily, Go if you want. Don't ever come back for the rest of your life. Su Peijian brought along a few shirts with barely any patches. She had packed them long ago, unable to bear staying in this house one more day. She was overjoyed that Sang Guojiang had finally brought up separating the family. She did not even take any grain from the home. But Sangchio would not let things slide so easily. Grandmother, if we are leaving, shouldn't you return our grain coupons? Driven out and still expecting grain coupons? Li Xiufan's mouth twisted with fury. She still could not believe her honest, docile eldest son would really walk away without a second thought. Grandmother, grain coupons must be divided when a family splits. If our family starves, grandfather's spirit will grieve in the afterlife. You! Li Xiufan pointed at Sangchio, too furious to speak. Sangchio knew exactly how to use the old woman's superstition against her. Everyone knew grandfather had doted on Sang Guojiang. He would be enraged to learn his eldest son had been treated like an ox all these years. Thinking of the joss paper she had seen in an earthen jar days earlier, Haji felt a chill run down her spine. Mother, perhaps we ought to give them something. Li Xiufan twitched her lips. Finally, she fetched 2 sacks of millet from the storage shed and tossed them down in front of Sangguojiang. Take the millet and get out. Whether you live or die from now on has nothing to do with the Sang family. Tears welled in Sangguojiang's eyes. Take care of yourself, mother. With that, he hoisted the sacks of millet and left with his wife and children. They walked all the way to the dilapidated old house beside the village riverbank. Abandoned for more than 20 years, the building was in terrible shape. It was barely capable of sheltering them from wind and rain. Still, Su Peijian was glad to be there. At the very least, no one would shout insults at her here, and there would be no endless chores waiting. Sang Qiu stared at the cobwebs covering the ceiling and turned to her father. Father, let's tidy this place up. Sangguojiang lit a dry tobacco cigarette silently. You 3 have suffered so much following me. As long as we stay together as a family, I do not feel wronged at all. Sang Qiu smiled. This quiet life was everything she had longed for in her previous life. She would keep working hard and give her family a prosperous future. The whole family cleaned the ancestral house for hours, slowly turning it into a proper home. Night fell soon after. Sang Qiu cooked the millet they had brought. She also gathered several wild duck eggs among the reeds. She seasoned them with salt and roasted them over an open fire. Soon, a delicious aroma filled the air. Su Peijian's mouth watered just from the scent. Little Cho learned well working alongside Chef Wu. Sang Qiu grinned. Mother, I will cook for you every day if you like it. She scooped out the soft yolk and handed it to Sang Yanyan. At 14, Yanyan looked no older than 12, thin and pale. She needed plenty of nourishment. Studying should be your priority at your age. Sangguojiang's tone turned stern. School will start soon. I know. Sang Qiu stuck out her tongue. I will manage my time well. As they talked, an elderly male voice came from outside the door. Oh, having dinner? Su Peijian glanced toward the doorway and paled when she saw Master Zhou, nearly dropping her bowl. Why, you, what brings you here? Sang Qiu turned around and smiled to greet him when she recognized their visitor. Master Zhou stepped inside, glanced at the Sang family's simple supper, and frowned. Is this all you're eating? He pulled a roasted chicken he had brought along from his bag, shocking the whole family. We don't have the money to pay you. Su Peijian was an honest village woman. The sight of Sangguofu being badly injured that morning was still fresh in her mind, and she dared not provoke Master Zhou. Master Zhou laughed gently. You misunderstand. I haven't come to collect payment. While he spoke, Sang Qiu fetched a clean wooden chair for him. Master Zhou sat down and addressed Sangguojiang directly. I have a construction project and need someone to oversee it. Sangguojiang stared in surprise. What work could I possibly do? He had never worked on a building site before. Master Zhou waved his hand. You won't be doing manual labor. You will recruit workers and manage the project for me. I will pay you for your work afterward. Clang. An iron bowl slipped out of Sangguojiang's hand and clattered to the ground. He could not recover from his shock. Master Zhou was offering him a job? Are you willing to take it on? Yes. Master Zhou could not have picked a better foreman than the earnest Sangguojiang. He would never withhold wages from laborers. Master Zhou sighed. Come to my house tomorrow morning. Su Peijian could barely believe her ears. Is this truly real? Master Zhou lit a cigarette. Oh, right. The site also needs a cook. Would you be interested? Naturally she would. Su Peijian nodded eagerly. Master Yo turned to Sang Qiu. I have news about the quilt you asked about. The young master of the Yu family bought it for 40 yuan. The young master of the Yu family? Yu Zhongyan. Why had he bought her quilt? Sang Qiu was thoroughly confused. Still, she was set to visit the Yu residence the next day to cook for Yu Zhongyan's mother. At the thought of meeting her future mother-in-law, Sang Qiu's heart fluttered with nervousness. Master Zhou stayed a little while longer before taking his leave. After dinner, mother and daughter washed the dishes by the stove. Su Peijian still struggled to process everything that had happened. Little Qiu, why do you think Master Zhou suddenly treated us so kindly, offering jobs for your father and me? Sangguojiang sat on a small wooden stool beside the stove and took a drag of tobacco. Little Qiu, should I go tomorrow? Absolutely. Sang Qiu smiled. She had worked hard to secure this opportunity for her parents, so there was no reason to turn it down. Sangguojiang's family chatted happily. Meanwhile, tension hung heavy at old lady Li Xiufan's home. Li Xiufan wept until she nearly fainted as she looked at her bloodied son. Mother, have some congee. Haji had just finished cooking, exhausted. Normally, Su Peijian handled all these chores. Now that she was gone, the household felt completely out of order. Li Xiaofan glanced at the burnt corn porridge and charred flatbread and rolled her eyes. You cannot even cook a decent meal. What good is keeping you in the Sang family? Cooking was never my job. Haji snapped, sitting sullenly to one side. Seeing her husband lying immobile on the kang filled her with resentment. Li Xiaofan's anger flared again at the thought of Su Peijian. My honest Guojiang would never have left if that barren woman hadn't turned him against us and pushed for the family split. She sighed. She ought never to have let the eldest branch move out. Now there was no one left to handle household labor, and daily expenses were already becoming a burden. Haji sipped her porridge silently. Li Xiaofan flew into a rage, grabbing a stick and striking her. You useless woman who cannot do anything right. Furious, Haji fled to the small wooded grove outside the courtyard. She whistled twice, and a middle-aged man wearing a flowery shirt wandered over with a lazy grin. Have you been thinking of me? He reached out to embrace her, but Haji pushed him away. I have serious matters to discuss. Eldest brother is splitting off from the family. How will we manage from now on? Do you truly intend to stay with the worthless Sangbafu? The man sounded displeased. Haji leaned into his arms. Not forever. But I need to get my hands on money first. How else will we run away together? Money is easy enough to sort out. Your mother-in-law still has savings set aside for her old age. Find a way to get them from her. That's right. Sangwafu is bedridden and eldest sister-in-law has left. Before long, all the family's money will belong to us. Haji beamed. You truly bring me luck. The pair embraced in the grove, unaware that Sang Qiu had witnessed everything. It seemed there would be plenty of turmoil ahead for the Sang family. Early the next morning, Sang Qiu changed into a clean white blouse and tied her black hair into 2 braids. At 16, she possessed striking features, bright and fresh like a flower glistening with morning dew, impossible to ignore. She slung her military, green canvas bag over her shoulder and boarded the long-distance bus. Yu Zhongyan's home was in Harbin, not far away. Once she got off the bus, she walked toward the Yu residence. A bicycle with 28-inch wheels rolled toward her. Yu Zhongyan wore a white shirt paired with army, green trousers, and the popular center, part haircut of the era. You're quite early. Dedicated to your work, I see. Sang Qiu stuck out her tongue at him. I have to give my best for those 200 yuan. It was spoken in jest. Yu Zhongyan coughed softly. It's still a fair distance to my house. Let me give you a ride. Was he offering to help her? Sang Qiu hesitated before sitting on the bicycle's rear seat. Harbin was chilly, but the air was crisp. Yu Zhongyan cycled up a sloped road, and Sang Qiu instinctively steadied herself by gripping the sides of his waist. Cough. Cough. The young man coughed again. Sang Qiu quickly pulled her hands away. She knew Yu Zhongyan disliked physical contact from others, even relatives. Her cheeks turned warm from the brief proximity. The bicycle stopped at the gate of an upscale residential compound, and Sang Qiu followed Yu Zhongyan inside. Sang Qiu held her breath in the elevator. She felt more nervous than she had when meeting Yu Zhongyan's father and elder brother in her previous life. She recalled that Yu Zhongyan had lost his mother young back then, though he had told her his mother Li Wanqin was gentle and kind. Yu Zhongyan pressed the doorbell twice. A graceful woman around 40 years old wearing a loose robe answered the door. Her complexion was pale, yet her features were elegant, carrying the poise of someone raised in a distinguished household. This must be Yu Zhongyan's mother, Li Wanqin. Good day, Auntie. Sang Qiu bowed her head in greeting. Li Wanqin smiled gently. Come inside. It's cold out there. She handed Sang Qiu a pair of pink slippers. After changing her shoes, Sang Qiu walked into the kitchen. It was only 7 in the morning, breakfast time for city families. Seeing pearl barley and lotus seeds ready in the kitchen, she simmered them with brown sugar and added several red dates. While the sweet soup cooked slowly, she boiled glutinous rice, fried it in oil to make rice cakes, then stir-fried tofu with Chinese cabbage. By the time the soup was ready, it was 8 o'clock. Sang Qiu carried the food over to Li Wanqin, apologizing softly. I'm sorry you've had to wait. I will arrive earlier tomorrow. Li Wanqin smiled faintly. I don't have many days left. It hardly matters whether I eat sooner or later. Mother. Yu Zhongyan frowned. Sang Qiu quickly spoke up. Auntie, do not say such things. You may live a long and healthy life yet. Li Wanqin laughed at her words. You are an interesting girl. Come and eat with us. Sang Qiu shook her head. Thank you, but I already ate before leaving home. Her breakfast had merely been two hard steamed buns washed down with plain boiled water. Li Wanqin did not press her. Sang Qiu served Yu Zhongyan a bowl of food, and Li Wanqin picked up a piece of fried tofu and placed it on his plate. Stop clashing constantly with your elder brother. When I am gone, listen more to your father. They mean you no harm. Tears glistened in Yu Zhongyan's eyes as he ate silently. The tofu was crispy outside and tender inside, seasoned perfectly, yet his heart felt as bitter as lotus seeds. Li Wanqin tried the glutinous rice cake coated in soybean powder and brown sugar syrup. The soft rice paired beautifully with the sweet sauce, creating a wonderful flavor. This rice cake is delicious. I have not tasted anything like it in years. I can make it for you often if you enjoy it, Sang Qiu said with a smile. She remembered Yu Zhongyan telling her Li Wanqin's hometown was Jinling. She had never returned after marrying Yu Zhongyan's father. Though the Yu family hired chefs to recreate her hometown dishes, Li Wanqin was discerning and always found the cooking lacking authenticity. She praised Sang Qiu's cooking endlessly, lifting a heavy weight from Yu Zhongyan's heart. Invite your elder brother over for dinner tonight, Li Wanqin said. Yu Zhongyan nodded in agreement. Yu Zhongyan's elder brother Yuli was the designated heir of the Yu family, traveling frequently for business. Rumor said the brothers shared a strained relationship. Sang Qiu, washing pots in the kitchen, paused at the news. Yuli was coming? Li Wanqin skipped lunch as usual, so Sang Qiu prepared no midday meal. Seeing her staring quietly at a flower, Sang Qiu brewed her a cup of honey water. You are a thoughtful child, Li Wanqin said warmly. Not only could she cook wonderfully, she was also lovely to look at. Li Wanqin grew fonder of her by the minute. She took the coral bracelet off her wrist and handed it to Sang Qiu. Your brother's elder brother will visit this evening. Cook a nice meal for us. Sang Qiu stared at the bracelet on her wrist in surprise. Is this really for me? I have worn it, but it is a precious piece. If you do not care for it, I have other ornaments in my room. No, that's not it. Sang Qiu shook her head. I simply think it is far too valuable. Li Wanqin smiled and covered Sang Qiu's delicate hand with her own. Young girls ought to dress nicely. When I was your age, I loved adorning myself. Sang Qiu lifted her eyes, emotions stirring within her. She wanted nothing more than to dress neatly, yet her family's poverty never allowed it. Do not cry, or you will lose your beauty. You should smile more often. She wrapped the coral bracelet 3 times around Sang Qiu's wrist. I have watched Zhongyan grow up. He is a reliable young man. Clink. Yu Zhongyan unlocked the front door and walked in to see the scene. What's going on here? Li Wanqin glanced at the flustered Sang Qiu and smiled knowingly. Nothing much. Is your elder brother coming tonight? Yu Zhongyan's long, narrow phoenix eyes drifted toward the kitchen. He is. That evening, knowing Yuli would arrive, Yu Zhongyan gave Sang Qiu 30 yuan, telling her to buy fine ingredients at the market and keep whatever money remained. Sang Qiu headed to the market and bought chicken, duck, a pigeon, premium pork belly, pork trotters, and a selection of vegetables and fruit. Back at the residence, she set to work in the spacious kitchen. She cleaned the pigeon, blanched it in boiling water with cooking wine, then stewed it with red dates, wolfberries, longans, and ginger slices. While the pigeon simmered, she cut the soaked pork belly into chunks. She melted rock sugar to create caramel sauce, added cinnamon and star anise, and fried the pork belly in the mixture. She set the braised pork aside, then prepared a marinade of soy sauce, bay leaves, cinnamon, and star anise, brushing it evenly over the cleaned duck. Thinking the color needed more shine, she brushed on honey halfway through roasting and flipped it to finish cooking. A rich aroma filled the kitchen. Even Li Wanqin, who rarely had an appetite, breathed it in with pleasure. While waiting, she cooked thin spring pancakes and set them aside to cool. Soon, knocks echoed at the front door. Sang Qiu, please answer the door. Li Wanqin called from the living room. Sang Qiu turned off the stove and opened the door. A tall, handsome man stood on the doorstep, his features bearing a resemblance to Yu Zhongyan. He looked roughly 25 or 26 years old. Sang Qiu froze the moment she laid eyes on him. Yuli was equally stunned, wondering if he had come to the wrong house. You are. This is the cook Zhongyan hired, Sang Qiu, Li Wanqin said as she wheeled herself over. Yuli set down his briefcase. Mother, are you feeling any better? Li Wanqin smiled. Much the same, neither good nor bad. She chatted with Yuli before turning to Sang Qiu. We can serve dinner now. Sang Qiu carried out the roast duck, spring pancakes, and braised pork. Yuli laughed. No wonder the whole building smells of roast duck. He picked up his chopsticks and tasted the food. The braised pork was tender, rich yet not greasy, and he praised it highly. Where did you find such a talented cook? Her cooking rivals high-end restaurants. Yu Zhongyan smiled without reply, his gaze fixed steadily on Sangqiu. She turned her head, and their eyes met. Cough. Cough. Yuli cleared his throat. Let us eat. I have been rushing about all day and have not had a single meal. Hearing this, Li Wanqin told Sangqiu to serve him a bowl of rice. Sangqiu handed over the rice bowl. If there is nothing else, I will return to the kitchen. The pigeon soup is still simmering. She hurried back to the kitchen, unaware Yu Zhongyan's gaze remained fixed on her. Quit staring, Yuli interrupted him. I wasn't, Yu Zhongyan muttered, continuing to eat. In the kitchen, Sangqiu closed the door. The pigeon soup was fully cooked. She turned off the heat and carried the pot out to the dining room. She smiled with satisfaction at the lavish spread laid out on the table. She was about to head back to prepare several cold dishes when Yu Zhongyan called out to her. Stay and have something to eat. Sangqiu turned around just in time to meet Yuli's sharp hawk-like gaze fixed firmly on her. I've still got several cold dishes left to finish. Carry on with your meal, everyone. With that remark, she headed back into the kitchen. She fished out the endive, chopped it up fine, poured sizzling hot oil over her seasoned mixture of ginger, garlic, and scallions, and stirred everything together to complete the cold appetizer. The table was laden with rich meat dishes that were easy to grow tired of eating, so Sangqiu set the cold dish down, and Shui Wanqin helped herself to generous portions of it. By the time the meal drew to an end, night had fallen. Once Sangqiu tidied up the kitchen completely, she slung her cloth bag over her shoulder to bid Shui Wanqin farewell. When Yuli suddenly called out to stop her. Miss Sang, a moment please. I need to speak with you. Yu Chong'an frowned sharply. Eldest brother. Yuli's expression turned stern. Let's step outside to talk. He grabbed Sangqiu by the arm and led her into the cold, dim corridor of the building. I believe you are a sharp young woman. Sangqiu had already guessed what Yuli intended to say, and she heaved a soft sigh. Say whatever you need to, Mr. Yu. Do not think I am blind to your intentions toward my younger brother. Yuli paused briefly before continuing. My brother is naive, seeing only kindness in everyone around him. You may fool him, but you will never fool me. His brows knitted tightly together. I am aware your family struggles financially, forcing you to take on work at a young age. But my brother's circumstances are worlds apart. Though he is not a direct line descendant of the Yu clan, someone of your standing is far from a suitable match for him. Sangqiu stood tall and silent, not uttering a single word. Do you understand my meaning? He pressed. You have misunderstood matters entirely, Sangqiu replied calmly. I hold no romantic feelings for Yu Chong'an whatsoever. I only came to cook for him because he pays me well. It is true my family lives in hardship, yet I work tirelessly to build a better life for us. Relief washed over Yuli upon hearing this answer. I suggest you refrain from plotting any schemes. The Yu household is an established, prominent family. It is no place for someone like you to seek entry. Sangqiu let out a quiet laugh. That is not a choice I can make for myself. I always know where to draw clear boundaries. If Yu Chong'an holds no affection for me, I will never impose myself on him. Yuli was left sputtering with anger, yet Sangqiu had already walked away. As she walked out through the residential compound gate, Yuli's harsh words echoed in her mind. Unpleasant as they were, they held an undeniable truth. For a wealthy young man like Yu Chong'an, possessing a pure character and unblemished family background was nowhere near enough for a fitting partner. One also needed refined taste and respectable social standing. If this were ancient times, her humble origins would have barred her from anything more than a lowly domestic servant by his side. Sangqiu, wait up. Lost in her tangled thoughts, Sangqiu spun around at the shout from behind her. Yu Chong'an came running toward her, breathless from hurrying over. What can I do for you, young master Yu? Yu Chong'an took in the cold detachment in Sangqiu's eyes, his words catching in his throat. After a long pause, he forced out a question. What did my older brother say to you just now? Nothing of importance. Sangqiu smiled openly, yet that carefree grin stung sharply at Yu Chong'an's heart. He told you to stay away from me, didn't he? The young man's brow furrowed deep with displeasure. Memories of her past life flooded over Sangqiu. Yu Chong'an had confronted her in exactly this same manner once before. Back then, she had ended their relationship harshly to spare him the burden of associating with her troubled family. Seeing history repeat itself left an ache hollowing out her chest. It was nothing like that, she offered weakly in explanation. Pay no mind to my brother's words. He treats everyone with unsparing strictness. Fearing Sang Chio would misjudge him, Yu Chongan hastily added in an awkward cough, I mean, I regard you purely as a friend. The pair walked side by side along the street, the handsome young man and beautiful young woman drawing admiring glances from passers-by. The evening breeze carried a chill, and Sang Chio pulled her coat tighter around herself. Yu Chongyan broke the silence. Sometimes I actually envy you. Your life may be simple and poor, but at least you possess ordinary, genuine happiness. Do you have a strained relationship with your elder brother? Sang Chio frowned with curiosity. Though she had dated Yu Chong'an in her previous life, she had never learned the full truth of his family dynamics. We simply hold conflicting views, Yu Chong'an answered. I believe a competent leader ought to lead with compassion. Real success can never be built on exploiting employees. Managers and their staff should operate as collaborative partners, building mutual trust to achieve shared benefits. Yet my father and my elder brother dismiss all my ideas as childish naivety. Exploiting working people is the cruel practice of old feudal landlords long gone with the old society. Those chasing true success cannot afford to fixate only on petty, short-term gains. Well said. Warm light glistened in Sang Chio's almond-shaped eyes as she gave Yu Chong'an an earnest, approving look. Yu Chong'an stared at her in stunned surprise. He had worried their philosophies would clash, never expecting her to share his perspective wholeheartedly. Sang Chio elaborated further. I fully agree that virtue is the correct foundation of leadership. Still, one must judge the character of those you interact with. Kindness and courtesy are due to upright people, yet we must meet unscrupulous people with firm, measured pushback. You are the first person who has ever validated my point of view, Yu Chong'an said with genuine excitement. His long, narrow phoenix eyes softened as he gazed at her, their depths unfathomable, enough to make anyone lose themselves in his stare. A faint blush rose across Sang Chio's cheeks. If you aim to become a manager someday, consider interning at your brother's company to gain real-world experience. Darkness had fully settled by the time they finished their conversation. When Sang Chio reached the bus station, she discovered the final scheduled bus had departed 3 minutes prior. She was stuck with no way home for the night. I'll arrange a taxi for you, Yu Chong'an said in a gentle tone. All previous cold reserve vanished from his voice. Sang Chio shook her head hesitantly. Taxis cost quite a bit of money. I was hoping to catch a ride with someone heading back to the village. She scanned the roadside stalls nearby. It had only been a few years since the reform and opening, a policy was enacted. Most stall vendors were migrant laborers who worked from dawn till dusk. Running a private small business had once been looked down upon, yet it was a reliable way to earn money and one of the few paths for rural residents to improve their social status. Yu Chong'an frowned with clear disapproval. Hitching rides with strangers you know nothing about is far too dangerous. You cannot verify their intentions, and no one would take responsibility if something went wrong. His earnest lecturing tone reminded Sang Chio of a concerned father figure, filling her heart with a soft warmth at his obvious care for her. She clutched the leftover cash from her grocery shopping and nodded firmly. I'll listen to you. Yu Chong'an's features relaxed into a faint smile, thinking she was being sensible at last. He raised his hand to flag down a white taxi. The driver rolled down his window, and anxious about being turned away for the long distance, Sang Chio asked immediately, Sir, do you make trips to Chiha Village? The driver wrinkled his brows. Young lady, Chiha Village is too far out. You'd better find another ride. I'll pay 5 yuan for the trip, Yu Chong'an called out. As the old saying went, money talks. At the mention of 5 yuan in fare, the driver quickly nodded his assent. Hop in, miss. Sang Chio glanced toward Yu Chong'an. 5 yuan was no small sum for a taxi ride, but it was growing late. Her parents would be frantic with worry if she stayed out any longer. She climbed into the back seat without further hesitation. Yu Chong'an let out a quiet breath of relief and pulled 5 yuan from his pocket to hand over to the driver. Sang Chio twisted the crumpled 5 yuan note clutched in her palms damp with nerves. Thank you for paying for my ride, she called out to him through the car window. Yu Chong'an's lips tugged upward in a smile. You still need to come cook for my mother tomorrow morning, remember? They exchanged final goodbyes with soft smiles, and even the taxi driver could not help but comment. Your boyfriend sure dotes on you. Sang Chio flushed bright red. He is not my boyfriend. The driver chuckled warmly. You two will be sooner or later. The taxi sped through 2 tunnels. Fortunately, Chiha Village was not extremely remote, free of bumpy mountain roads. The vehicle pulled to a stop at the village entrance and Sang-chyo stepped out. Instead of heading straight home, she stopped by the village supply and marketing cooperative to pick up fresh vegetables and her younger sister's favorite snacks. Spotting a fresh batch of pork on sale, she decided to buy 2 caddies of it as well. "Shopkeeper, can I put a bottle of white liquor on my tab? How much debt have you already run up here?" The shopkeeper grumbled irritably. "Please just extend me credit one more time." A girl's pleading voice drifted over to Sang-chyo's ears. The voice sounded familiar, and when she turned around, she found Sang-nan, the younger daughter of Sang-gu and Hee-ji. The girl wore a faded red padded jacket covered in patches and wore her hair tied into 2 ponytails. She froze the instant she laid eyes on Sang-chyo. "Sang-chyo? What are you doing here?" Sang-chyo ignored her. Sang-nan had never been a kind girl, having bullied Sang-chyo and her younger sister relentlessly throughout their childhood in their previous life. Undeterred, Sang-nan's sharp eyes caught the coral bracelet wrapped around Sang-chyo's fair wrist. It glinted brightly even under the dim yellow lamplight of the shop. "What kept you out so late tonight?" She then spotted the 2 caddies of pork hanging from Sang-chyo's hand. Having survived on rough steamed corn buns for days on end, Sang-nan swallowed hard with envy. "We split into separate households a long time ago. My business is none of your concern," Sang-chyo replied flatly. She grabbed her bags and walked out of the cooperative. Sang-nan hurried after her. "Did you latch onto some wealthy patron? How can you afford pork all of a sudden?" A crowd of village residents had gathered around the cooperative entrance, and Sang-nan spoke loudly on purpose to stir up gossip. It sparked murmurs and whispers among the onlookers. Sang-chyo let out a cold laugh at the girl's relentless provocation. "Don't project your own behavior onto everyone else," she retorted sharply. Though her words were blunt, the villagers readily accepted them as truth. Sang-nan had dropped out of school after primary grade graduation and lazed about the village all day with no productive work. Not long before, she had lingered around the gate of the village's only high school to pester senior students preparing for the college entrance exam. She tore one boy's school uniform in the process. The villagers often gossiped about her shameless behavior, yet Sang-nan paid no heed to their judgment. Sang-chyo's rebuttal left Sang-nan burning with embarrassment. "You cannot slander my reputation like this." "Slander? I saw you grab hold of that high school student and drag him home by force only a few days ago, tearing his uniform to pieces in the scuffle." Sang-nan's face turned beet red as she shouted defensively. "Marriage and courtship are natural parts of life. There is nothing wrong with pursuing someone you like freely." She rambled on with messy old sayings about courtship and marriage, claiming women had an easier time winning over men than the other way around. She said that marrying well was far better than striving to build a life through hard work. The villagers snickered openly at her foolish remarks. Having no patience to waste energy bickering with her, Sang-chyo walked away with her groceries. Sang-nan fled back home amid the crowd's mocking laughter. Back at home, Hee-ji stood over the stove cooking, her face smudged black with cooking smoke. She rushed forward the moment her daughter stepped through the door. "Did you get the white liquor your father asked for?" Sang-nan pouted unhappily. "The shopkeeper refused to add it to our tab." Sang-gu, lying on the heated brick bed inside the main room, flew into a rage upon hearing the news. He smashed his empty wine cup against the floor. "Can you even complete a simple errand to buy wine? You useless, good for nothing girl. You are far less helpful than your elder brother in any way possible. You eat our food and live under our roof yet never lift a finger to help this family." His shouting grew louder and more vicious. Sang-nan's eyes stung with hot tears. Why did Sang-chyo get to eat fine food and live comfortably, while she endured constant scolding and beatings every single day? Consumed by bitter resentment, she lashed out and knocked over the family's only valuable possession, a thermos flask. The loud crash drew old Lady Lee Xiofan over from the neighboring room. Seeing the shattered thermos on the earthen floor, she raised her hand and struck Sang-nan hard across the cheek. "Are you trying to rebel against this household, you worthless girl?" Hee-ji quickly stepped between them to shield her daughter. "Mother, Nan is still just a child." "Nonsense. She is 14 years old, plenty old enough. I was married off to your father when I was her age." Old Lady Lee Xiufan's gaunt cheeks quivered with fury as she berated the mother and daughter pair. "This ill-omened girl you raised takes after you completely. If you continue causing trouble, take this bad luck child and get out of my house for good." Mother, Hee-ji had lost all will to argue back. She was worn thin from endless back-breaking housework with no one to share the burden. She was forced to care for her paralyzed husband Sang Erlang and endure constant verbal abuse from her mother-in-law. She would have run away with her secret lover long ago if not for the pension funds her mother-in-law held control over. Sang Nan was not one to submit quietly. She planted her hands firmly on her hips and shouted back. Shouting at us solves nothing. Eldest uncle's family is eating meat now. Sang Chio even wears an expensive bracelet on her wrist. She must have found some wealthy benefactor to support her. The quarrel fell silent instantly as Li Xiufan froze in shock. Repeat what you just said. The eldest son's family has come into money. Hiji looked puzzled. She remembered the eldest branch had left the household carrying nothing more than 2 sacks of millet when they separated. Say that again. I said Sang Chio has money to splurge. She bought 2 caddies of pork at the cooperative today. Sang Nan's voice carried clearly to every member of the family. The Sang family lived in abject poverty. Even before the household split apart, every cent Sang Guojiang earned had gone toward paying off the gambling debts racked up by Sang Guofu. Their daily meals consisted of steamed corn cakes and pickled radish strips year-round. They rarely tasted meat of any kind. They would stretch a mere 2 caddies of pork bought for Lunar New Year celebrations to last an entire week stewed with cabbage. To buy such a large cut of pork for no holiday or special occasion could only mean one thing: Sang Chio had struck it rich somehow. Li Xiufan's eyes lit up with greedy excitement. Are you certain of what you saw? 100% sure. She was dressed nicely and wearing expensive jewelry too. Sang Nan exaggerated every detail, burning with jealousy toward Sang Chio. The girl who had once been beneath her feet in every way was now living a comfortable life she could never hope to attain. Mother, could eldest brother truly have gotten wealthy? Hiji asked hesitantly, thick with jealousy and resentment. Li Xiufan's face split into a greedy grin. We will invite your eldest husband over to our home first thing tomorrow morning. Hiji nodded her assent. She knew full well the old woman only intended to exploit Sang Guojiang's newfound fortune to pay off Sang Guofu's gambling debts. It would also support their entire idle household just as things had been before the split, yet resentment gnawed away at her heart regardless. Li Xiufan was overjoyed at the prospect, the wrinkles crinkling around her eyes, deepening with greed. Now we'll have the money needed for Guoqing's wedding. Su Guoqing was the only son of Sang Guofu and Hiji, the beloved grandson Li Xiufan doted on above everyone else. Already 18 years old, he loafed around the village with no steady work, unable to secure a marriage match due to the family's destitute state. With Sang Guojiang supposedly wealthy now, they could scrape together thousands of yuan to arrange a bride for him. After all, the Sang family bloodline had to be carried on. Sang Guojiang rushed forward the moment he saw his daughter walk in carrying a large bundle of goods. A young girl should never stay out this late. What would we do if something terrible happened to you? Sang Chio stuck out her tongue playfully. I made it back safe and sound, didn't I? She handed the snacks she had bought to her younger sister Sang Yan. They were out of bubble gum today, but I can pick a pack up for you when I head to Harbin tomorrow. Sang Yan beamed with delight. I knew my sister was the best person in the whole world. Su Peijian stared at the groceries in shock. Xiaoqiu, even if our life has gotten slightly easier lately, there is no need to spend money so recklessly. Mother, we have plenty of money to spare now. Sang Chio pulled 5 10-yuan banknotes known locally as Great Unity bills out of her pocket. It left Sang Guojiang utterly stunned. Xiaoqiu, what kind of work have you gotten mixed up in? I have told you time and again, never get involved in dishonest or unlawful deeds. I have never stolen a single thing, Sang Chio said, helpless and amused by their worry. She struggled to explain the full truth properly. She settled for a simple explanation. This money was given to me by my master, and I earn good pay from cooking meals for other people as well. How could cooking a few dishes earn you this much money? Sang Guojiang and Su Peijian exchanged skeptical glances. They were honest, simple rural folk who only paid land taxes at the township office on rare occasions. The village's wealthiest household, led by village chieftain, did not even earn this much in a whole month. It seemed impossible their daughter could earn such a sum merely by preparing home-cooked meals. I'm just a very skilled cook, Sang Chio laughed, handing the new light bulb to her father. Father, we cannot keep relying on candlelight in our home forever. Sang Guojiang glanced up at the dim yellow candlelight and noticed the bulb was a premium energy-saving compact fluorescent lamp. Even with extra money, you ought not waste it on unnecessary things, he said earnestly. You need to save up a dowry for your future marriage. A solid dowry lets a woman hold her head high in her husband's household. Memories of Yu Chong'en sending her home in the taxi floated unbidden through Sang Chio's mind, painting a soft blush across her cheeks. Father, I want to stay with all of you for many more years still. Sang Guijiang smiled gently. Then focus on your studies, find a dependable partner when the time comes, and your mother, and I will have nothing left to worry over. I don't want to get married anytime soon. Sang Chio whined playfully. I'm going to earn a great deal of money, buy proper city apartments for the whole family. I'll send Yan Yan to attend school in the city. Child, those dreams are far easier said than done, Su Peijian replied as she took the pork out of the bag to prepare it. City housing requires an official urban household registration permit, and there is no way for us rural folk to obtain such documents. Leave it to me to figure out a solution, Sang Chio patted her mother's shoulder confidently. Father, mother, Nian Nian, trust me on this. Within 2 years at most, our whole family will live a comfortable, worry-free life. Sang Guijiang screwed the new light bulb into the socket, flooding the small room with bright, clear light. Can sister buy a television for our home too? Sang Nianyan's childish voice echoed through the room. Buying a television was no simple task in this era. Official television ration coupons were mandatory for purchase, and imported television sets were even harder to acquire. Still, Sang Chio gave her sister her word that she would manage it somehow. Bathed in the bright new lamplight, Sang Chio washed the fresh vegetables, blanched the pork in boiling water before deep frying it in hot oil. Then she fried cabbage in the leftover cooking oil. She tossed in 2 small dried chili peppers to add flavor. The rich, savory aroma drifted outside the courtyard walls, making even Sang Guijiang's mouth water. This pork dish tastes better than the braised chicken Master Zhou brought over the other day. Sang Chio curled her lips into a pleased smile. She planned to return to her master's kitchen the next morning to refine her cooking skills further. Only by boosting her income could she lift her family out of hardship for good. She did not neglect her schoolwork amid her efforts to earn money either. Once the family finished dinner, she retreated to her side room. She switched on her desk lamp and settled down to review her grade 2 high school textbooks long into the night. The next morning, Sang Chio arrived at Chef Wu's restaurant shortly after 6 o'clock to study culinary arts. Dark purple bags were heavy beneath her eyes from late night studying. Chef Wu paused mid preparation of hand, pulled noodles and sighed at her exhausted appearance. Take a day off to rest if you are worn thin. My shop does not depend entirely on your presence. Sang Chio instantly perked up at his words, refocusing her attention completely. Master, what dish will we learn to make today? In the morning session under Chef Wu's guidance, she mastered the technique for stuffed eggs. By the afternoon, she drafted a recipe for quail braised with shrimp and seaweed for Qinjianjun. The roasted quail had crispy outer skin paired with tender meat infused with the savory flavor of dried shrimp. The dish was an instant hit with all the restaurant's patrons the moment it was served. Overjoyed with the dish's popularity, Qin Jianjun paid Sang Chio 50 yuan for her recipe. Sang Chio stuffed 50 yuan into her pocket and boarded a passenger bus heading to Yu Chongyan's home. After ringing the doorbell twice, the door swung open. Yuli, dressed in casual home clothes, frowned unhappily upon seeing Sang Chio standing outside. Is that Sang Chio coming over? Li Wanqin rolled out in a wheelchair. Yuli hurried forward to steady her. Please take it slow, mother. Li Wanqin smiled warmly. Sang Chio is such a lovely girl with stunning looks, and she's an excellent cook. I grow fonder of her by the day. She reached out to hold Sang Chio's fair, delicate hand. This coral bracelet suits you perfectly. Cough, cough. Li Wanqin suddenly broke into a coughing fit. Yuli grabbed a pack of tissues from the living room table and handed them to her. When Li Wanqin pressed the tissue to her mouth, bright red blood seeped through the paper, terrifying Sang Chio. Auntie, are you all right? Li Wanqin gasped feebly, speaking in barely a whisper to reassure her. I'm fine, don't be scared. Tears welled up in Sang Chio's eyes. Li Wanqin was the most important person to Yu Chong'en, which meant she mattered deeply to Sang Chio as well. Yuli's frown deepened with displeasure. Miss Sang, come with me for a moment. Sang Chio shot a glance at Yuli before turning back to Li Wanqin. I'll step out for a while. Let me know what you'd like to eat later. Li Wanqin nodded, then told Yuli, don't be harsh on poor Sang Chio. She's still just a kid. Yuli forced a thin smile. Rest assured, mother. I won't do anything to her. As he spoke, his gloomy hawk-like eyes locked onto Sang Chio. She followed him into the secondary bedroom. Did my words from yesterday fall on deaf ears, Miss Sang? I understood perfectly. Right now, Yu Chong'en and I share nothing more than an employer and domestic helper relationship. Sang Chio's tone was resolute. She knew she was not worthy of Yu Chongen for the time being, and she ought not provoke Yuli, yet she could not stay silent after being humiliated. I hope you fully grasp this. Your relationship with Chongyan must never go beyond employer and hired help. Yuli paused briefly before continuing. I want you to cut all contact with him once my life comes to an end. Can you promise me that? Sang Chio clenched her fists and said nothing. Yuli fixed her with an icy stare, his imposing aura weighing heavily on her. Gripping the hem of her clothing tightly, she gave her word. I promise. Very well, the man replied in a low voice, adding another remark. I ought to mention this, my mother suffers from stomach cancer, and she only has roughly 2 months left to live. He let out a quiet sigh, his expression complicated. That said, if you can prolong her time with us, I'll double your wages without hesitation. Sang Chio let out a faint smile. Yu Chongen already pays me 200 yuan each month for my work. Then your pay will rise to 400 yuan. Yuli raised an eyebrow, musing that his normally frugal brother spared no expense to win a girl's heart. Chong'an would never splurge more than 20 yuan on a book for himself, yet he was willing to pay 200 just to hire a cook. Sang Chio had no retort and shook her head. If you have no further matters to discuss, I'll get back to the kitchen. Auntie cannot go hungry. Yuli watched her walk toward the kitchen and slide the glass door shut behind her. Alone in the kitchen, tears spilled down Sang Chio's cheeks. Perhaps falling in love was the last thing she should be focusing on right now. Once she earned enough money and got into university, Yuli might stop opposing her bond with Yu Chong'an. This thought reignited her drive and determination. Li Wanqin was extremely weak that afternoon, so greasy or overly soft foods were strictly off the menu. Sang Chio sliced a carrot, grabbed a handful of red dates, then simmered pork trotters with the ingredients over a gentle flame. 20 minutes later, oil began to bubble atop the soup. She seasoned it lightly with salt, monosodium glutamate, cooking wine and ground pepper, then let it simmer on low heat for another 30 minutes. Soon, the rich, savory aroma of pork trotter soup filled the entire kitchen. Sang Chio ladled a bowl of soup and offered it to Li Wanqin, urging her to drink it. But the sight of the pork trotters instantly turned her stomach. Auntie, you need to eat something to keep your strength up. Li Wanqin shook her head firmly. I can't stomach any more pork trotter soup. Previous household helpers had constantly prepared this dish for her over the years, leaving her thoroughly tired of it. Those tasteless broths tasted no better than plain water used to rinse raw pork. Please try just a little bit. I refuse. Li Wanqin's tone turned sharp. How much longer do I have to force down this soup? Sang Chio heaved a weary sigh. The nutrients in pork trotters are good for your recovery. Everyone in the Yu household, including Sang Chio, knew Li Wanqin's stomach cancer was terminal. Only the woman herself was kept in the dark. Yu Chong'an had begged the family countless times never to reveal the truth of her condition to his mother. Is that really true? Li Wanqin stared blankly ahead, worn down to the bone by her illness and clinging to life by a thread. People facing the end of their lives were invariably afraid of death, and Li Wanqin was no exception. It is absolutely true. This soup will ease your discomfort and nourish your body. Sang Chio's nose stung with emotion as she spoke. Fine, I'll drink it. She took the large bowl of thick broth. Contrary to her expectations, the soup was pleasant to the palate, and she finished 3 full bowls in one go. She could not tell if her enjoyment stemmed purely from the fine flavor or the warmth Sang Chio had put into cooking it. While Li Wanqin finished nearly the entire pot of soup, Sang Chio brewed her medicinal decoction and carried it over. Auntie, you need to take your medicine now. I don't want it. Li Wanqin curled inward with a slight tremble. She had no idea how much longer she had left to live and hated being a burden to her sons. Still, she worried endlessly about Yu Chong'an. With his gruff temperament, could Sang Chio ever put up with him long term? Taking the medicine will help you heal faster. Sang Chio knitted her brows tightly. Even she could smell the bitter, fishy stench of the brew, yet it was the only treatment that could extend Li Wanqin's days and ease her suffering in her final moments. Li Wanqin eyed the medicine doubtfully. This concoction won't fix anything. There's no point in drinking it. You'll get better with treatment. Once you recover, I'll take you back to Jinling. The mention of Jinling brought tears to Li Wanqin's eyes. Do you mean that sincerely? Sang Chio forced a bright smile onto her face. Every word. You can ask Mr. Yu if you don't believe me. Yuli had not anticipated Sang Chio would pivot the conversation so smoothly to sway his mother. The young girl was far cleverer than he'd assumed, talking the resistant patient into drinking her medicine with effortless ease. His gaze darkened slightly. Mother, listen to Miss Singh. Grandmother called yesterday hoping to see you. The news of her own mother longing to meet her stirred tangled emotions within Li Wanqin. She had cut ties with her family decades ago to marry the boy's father, yet her mother had never forgotten her. She lifted the bowl and drained the bitter medicine in one gulp. Auntie, Sang Chio moved forward instinctively to stop her, but Yuli held her back. Once Li Wanqin drifted off to sleep, Yuli and Sang Chio carried her into her bedroom together. You handled everything admirably today, Miss Singh. Yuli wore an unfathomable smile. Sang Chio kept her worries hidden behind a calm exterior. Rest assured, I will limit all unnecessary contact with Yu Chongen for the time being. You agreed that easily? Yuli looked confused, expecting her to bargain for terms or concessions. Sang Chio smiled faintly. I do not deny I am not his equal right now, but this will only be a temporary state of affairs. She chopped up chicken pieces and dropped them into the pot, adding scallions and ginger slices before covering the pot with a lid. Sang Chio reacted with far more poise than Yuli had anticipated. He had braced for hysterical tears or desperate pleas, yet she displayed none of it. She washed her hands, chopped cleaned spinach leaves, mixed them with a pinch of salt and flour, kneaded the mixture into small dough balls, then steamed them in a pot. In the meantime, she prepared a dipping sauce for the spinach dumplings. Mindful of Li Wanqin's fragile health, she omitted chili peppers entirely, only adding minced garlic, hot oil, and aged vinegar to the blend. By then, the chicken soup had fully simmered, filling every room with a rich, inviting fragrance. Sang Chio removed her apron and walked over to Yuli, who watched her with a look of suspicion. You must be worn out after the day's work. Have a bowl of chicken soup. MHM, he gave a short reply. Whatever his opinion of Sang Chio might be, he could not deny her cooking was genuinely excellent. As Yuli savored the soup, Sang Chio tidied the kitchen space. I have personal errands to attend to, so I'll take my leave now. Simply reheat the dishes on the stove for later meals. Without waiting for Yuli's response, she hurried out the door. Yuli frowned, puzzled by her sudden rush to depart. What urgent business could she possibly have? Sang Chio sprinted out of the residential compound. If her memories from her past life served her correctly, her younger sister would fall victim to harassment on this exact day. In her previous life, she had returned home from collecting firewood to find her sister lying injured on the ground, surrounded by gawking villagers. They blamed the teenage girl for inviting harm upon herself. Her sister cried through the whole night after the incident. After a failed suicide attempt, their Aunt Hiji sold her to an elderly bachelor from a neighboring village. With their parents absent and Sang Chio swamped with work, she never got the chance to visit her sister, who eventually took her own life. Every tragedy that befell her sister traced back to this fateful day. Sang Chio raced toward the bus station desperate to stop her sister from leaving home, only to collapse onto the ground from exhaustion. She forced herself back onto her feet when a familiar male voice called out from behind her. Are you hurt? Sang Chio turned around to see Yu Chongen standing there. Her beloved boy wore a crisp white sweater paired with dark blue jeans, his eyes filled with obvious anxiety. What's happened? Why are you in such a frantic hurry? Sang Chio gasped for breath, with no time to explain the full story. I'll tell you everything tomorrow, it's too complicated to go into detail now. She pulled away from his hand and flagged down an approaching long-distance bus before climbing aboard. Yu Chongen watched her leave with a furrowed brow. His first thought was that his elder brother must have said something cruel to drive Sang Chio away. He rushed straight home, where Yuli was sipping chicken soup at a leisurely pace. He greeted his brother with a casual wave upon seeing Yu Chongen walk through the door. Back from school. Yu Chongen stepped up beside him, glancing at the soup bowl with a cold expression. Did you chase Sang Chio away? Yuli let out a dry laugh. I had nothing to do with her leaving. Has she run to you to complain? Yu Chongyen's expression hardened. Brother, do you take me for a fool? The bus arrived at its destination, and Sang Chio rushed straight toward the village entrance. Distressed screams drifted over from the small wooded grove nearby. Let go of me. I'll call for help. Shout all you want, no one is coming to rescue you today. Two thugs closed in on Sang Yanyan. The 14-year-old girl had never faced such danger before, and she let out a shrill cry of terror as the men advanced. Back off right now. Sang Chio burst out from the trees and pulled her younger sister safely into her embrace. Relief washed over Sang Yanyan at the sight of her elder sister. Sis? What are you doing here? Sang Chio squeezed her trembling hand gently. Don't be afraid. I'm here to protect you. Sis. The two hooligans swept their greedy gazes over the two sisters. This older girl has such fair, delicate skin. Messing with her will be plenty entertaining. Their vulgar words churned Sang Chio's stomach with disgust. She grabbed her sister's wrist and broke into a run, shouting loudly for assistance. Help! Some men are harassing young girls here. Startled by her cries for help, one man grabbed hold of Sang Chio, while the other clamped a hand over Sang Nyan's mouth to muffle her shouts. You shameless girl. We all know you're being kept by a city man. You're out of luck crossing paths with us today. The rumor that she was financially supported by a city outsider was nothing but malicious gossip fabricated by someone in the village. The man holding Sang Chio reached for the buttons on her shirt, and she jammed her foot hard into his kneecap. He howled out in sharp pain. How dare you hurt my brother? The second man lunged forward, only to receive a forceful kick to his lower body from Sang Chio. Seizing the moment of chaos, Sang Chio dragged her sister toward the village entrance, screaming for aid nonstop. The pair dared not slow their pace for a single second as the furious thugs chased after them, hurling insults all the while. Wretched girl! You act high and mighty despite your tainted reputation. Panic surged through Sang Chio's chest as her strength began to fade against the relentless pursuit. She shielded her sister tightly to her chest as they ran blindly forward, abruptly crashing into a solid male torso. Little Chio. A warm, hearty male voice sounded above her. Sang Chio lifted her head to see a young man in a plaid shirt with a wavy center, parted hairstyle, rough around the edges, yet naturally cheerful. Brother Jinon? With the thugs closing in fast, Sang Chio ducked behind the young man for shelter. The two hooligans froze the moment they laid eyes on Ji Jianon. Boss? What are you doing out here? Ji Jianon positioned himself in front of the sisters and roared at the two men. Who told you to bully my acquaintance? Get lost while you still can. Intimidated by his aggressive tone, the two men stammered out apologies before scurrying away in defeat. Sang Chio stepped out from behind Ji Jianon once the coast was clear. Thank you for what just happened. Ji Jianon brushed back his exaggerated curly bangs and studied her carefully. Are you still attending school? Sang Nian hid timidly behind Sang Chio's back, and Sang Chio nodded her head. It's good to see you're faring well, Brother Jianon. A low chuckle rumbled in Ji Jianon's chest. If you ask me, school isn't doing you any favors. Come work alongside me to run a business instead. Ji Jianon had been Sang Chio's classmate before dropping out of junior high school. He had attempted several small ventures over the years, all ending in failure. Though his family was wealthy enough for him to live comfortably regardless of income. Recalling that Ji Jianon would grow into a successful entrepreneur in her past life, Sang Chio curled her lips into a faint smile. We can discuss collaborating on a business opportunity sometime. Seriously? You're actually agreeing? Surprise flickered across Ji Jianon's face, his peach-shaped eyes lighting up with excitement. He bombarded her with concerned questions. I found a promising new business idea. We can hire local women skilled in handcrafts and sell their handmade goods in the city market. Sang Chio mulled the plan over and deemed it reasonably viable. I'll need some time to think it over. She paused briefly before adding, I actually have a more practical proposal. Would you like to hear it? She was just about to explain her idea when she spotted Heiji hurrying toward her family's house, triggering an uneasy premonition. She changed the subject immediately. It's getting late. We can talk more tomorrow after I return from school. Meet me at the school gate at noon. Ji Jianon frowned slightly but agreed. Very well. After parting ways with him, Sang Chio pulled her sister toward home, wondering what business Heiji had at their residence. Taking a longer route home delayed Heiji's arrival by a short margin. When she stepped into the Sang family home, Sang Guojiang had just returned from construction work dressed in his Navy work uniform. He greeted Heiji warmly the second he spotted her. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? Heiji's eyes raked over Sang Guojiang with ulterior motives. I just came to check in on you, brother. She followed him indoors into the family's shabby old cottage and settled onto the brick bed. She quickly dismissed the claims Sang Nan had made about the family falling on hard times. Have a bowl of fried flour paste drink, sister-in-law. Sang Guojiang handed her a large bowl filled with the thick, fragrant beverage. The sweet aroma of toasted sesame seeds and crushed peanuts hung thick in the air. Heiji's eyes turned envious. You can even afford this luxury now? Fried flour paste was a rare treat in Chiha village, not overly expensive but hard to come by. Even when available, the Sang family could never afford it. Yet Heiji had secretly bought small portions for herself on occasion, savoring only tiny mouthfuls at a time. Seeing Sanggujiang serve a full bowl to her fueled her suspicion that he had suddenly come into money. Sanggujiang was an honest, straightforward man. He sat on the edge of the brick bed and rolled a dry tobacco cigarette for himself. Little Cho brought this back from the city yesterday. Your sister-in-law Peijian also loves drinking it. He sipped the warm paste, savoring its rich sweetness. You're truly blessed to have little Cho land such a well-off patron. Why are you here? Sang Chio fixed her with a cold stare, certain the slander about her being supported by a city man had originated directly from Hiji. He looked up to find Sang Chio walking in with a disheveled Sang Nian in tow. Well, if it isn't little Chio home at last. Hiji rose from the bed, unable to deny the striking good looks the young woman possessed. What do you want in my house? Her almond eyes blazed with sharp hostility. Hiji instinctively stepped backward before turning to Sanggujiang to complain. Brother, look at how your daughter speaks to her elders. Sanggujiang took a couple of drags from his cigarette. Speak respectfully to your second aunt, little Cho. He stood up and addressed Hiji directly. What business brings you to my home today? Hiji pursed her lips and took another sip of the paste. Mother sent me to ask you to move back home to care for her in her old age. She's been grieving terribly since you left. Her sorrowful tone tugged at Sanggujiang's heartstrings, stirring hesitation within him. But Sang Chio saw straight through her scheme. Their lives had only just begun to improve. And grandmother Li Xiufan wanted Sanggujiang to return solely to pay off second uncle Sangguifu's debts. Her relatives were truly cunning and calculating. Sanggujiang pulled 30 hard, earned yuan from his pocket to hand over to Hiji, only for Sang Chio to block his hand instantly. How is second uncle's health holding up? Hiji curled her lip in irritation at Sang Chio ruining her plan once more. He suffered a bone fracture. Anger bubbled up in Hiji at the mention of the incident. Brother, he's your own blood brother after all. How could you leave him stranded like this? Mother has cried non-stop these past few days. You're being terribly unfilial. Sanggujiang stubbed out his cigarette and sighed heavily. I made mistakes in the past. I'll move back with Peijian and the girls tomorrow. Hiji's face split into a wide grin upon hearing her goal achieved. That's wonderful news. I'll hurry back and tell Mother right away. Father, I don't want to go back. Sang Nianyan's timid voice pulled Sanggujiang back to his senses. Recalling all the unfair mistreatment his wife and daughters had endured under his mother's roof, his resolve wavered. I won't move back for now. I'll go visit Mother in a few days' time. Hiji flew into frustration. Brother, why would you listen to a mere child? That woman is your birth mother. Grandmother already has your devoted care to rely on, Sang Chio retorted coldly. On top of second uncle's injuries, what real help could father offer? You simply want him to work non-stop to clear second uncle's debts, while mother waits on your entire family hand and foot and tends to all the farm labor and cooking. That's not the case at all. Caught red-handed with her true intentions laid bare, Hiji had no grounds left to defend herself. Sang Chio walked to her father's side. Father, you witnessed every hardship mother endured living with grandmother. She gave you 2 daughters. How can you send her back into that miserable living hell? I know all of this, child. Sanggujiang's brows knit together with distress. Grandmother has no genuine need for you beyond exploiting your labor to bail out second uncle's family. Our lives have finally stabilized after so much hardship. Are you willing to throw away this peace to return to a life of endless poverty and servitude? I won't allow it. As the conversation unfolded, Su Peijian stood in the doorway carrying a wicker basket. Peijian, what are you doing back here? Sanggujiang felt the silver bracelet tucked in his pocket and let out a quiet breath of relief. Over their decade-long marriage, he had always felt deep guilt over everything he'd put Su Peijian through. Su Peijian marched straight up to Hiji. Why should our family of 4 go back to wait on your family and put up with endless mistreatment? Your husband's family are nothing but leeches. They take our money yet pick apart everything we do. I have no reason whatsoever to go back with you. This was only the second time Hiji had seen Su Peijian fly into a rage. She twitched her mouth and stammered nervously. Sister-in-law, that's not what I meant. Then what exactly did you mean? Su Peijian pressed her sharply, leaving Hiji lost for words. Sanggujiang, I've stood by your side all these years. I've put in blood, sweat, and tears for this family. You'd better think long and hard about this. If you choose to go back with her, don't ever acknowledge me or our children again. Peijian. Sanggujiang knitted his brows tightly and instinctively sided with his wife. Hiji, you can head back home. I'm not coming with you. Hiji watched her carefully laid plan fall apart right before her eyes, overcome with furious disbelief. How can you do this? Brother, have you forgotten your own mother just because you have a wife now? It's your husband who abandons his own mother for his own selfish gains, isn't it? Sangchio wore a faint smile, her tone cold and unyielding. With Sangguojiang refusing to return, all of Heji's schemes crumbled to nothing. Burning with shame and anger, she shouted loudly, "You wretched girl! First you egg your father on to split the family property, then you urge your mother to leave him. You're a total jinx to the Sang family." Su Peijian could never bear anyone insulting her precious daughter. Having worked cooking meals for laborers at the construction site these past few days, she'd grown bold and tough as the women working alongside her. She immediately hefted a shovel and brandished it threateningly. "Say that one more time and see what happens." Her eyes blazed red with fury, terrifying Heji instantly. "Brother, can't you control your wife?" Sangguojiang roared with rage. "I've only endured your behavior out of respect for you being my brother's wife. Otherwise I'd pick up a shovel right alongside her." Su Peijian carried the shovel and chased Heji all the way to the gate. Terrified out of her wits, Heji cut through a shortcut and fled home in a panic. Sangguojiang pulled his wife and daughters into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry you three have had to suffer all this unfairness. Father, promise you won't go back there ever again," Sang Nian whispered softly. Sangguojiang heaved a long sigh. "I'll never let any of you suffer like this again." Sangchio could tell her father's resolve was still shaky, so she spoke up to persuade him. "Father, think carefully about how much money your brother has swindled out of you. Have we ever lived a single comfortable day because of him? You have my word, it won't happen again." Sangguojiang glanced at the fried wheat paste sitting on the heated brick bed, filled with regret. It would have been better to feed that stuff to stray dogs. He pulled the silver bracelet he'd bought from his pocket and slipped it onto Su Peijian's wrist, leaving her utterly stunned. "This is for me? You've been with me for 17 years without a single decent piece of jewelry. I'm truly sorry for all the hardships you've endured." All of Su Peijian's anger towards Sangguojiang melted away in an instant. "Life has been tough, but we've pulled through it together after all." Sangguojiang's guilt weighed even heavier on his heart. "This silver bracelet is just the start. Once I earn more money down the line, I'll buy you a gold one. I'll make sure you live more comfortably and proudly than the village chief's wife." Women were easily satisfied by heartfelt words alone, and Su Peijian beamed from ear to ear hearing his vow. "I don't need a gold bracelet from you. If we work together to send Xiao to university and renovate this old house, I'll be happier than words can say." Tears welled up uncontrollably in Sangguojiang's eyes. "Peijian, you really are too good to me." After 17 years of marriage, the couple still shared the tender warmth of newlyweds. Staring down at the silver bracelet on her wrist, Su Peijian felt wrapped in pure sweetness. Sangguojiang silently swore to himself that he would buy her a fine gold bracelet no matter what. Sangchio took her little sister outside to play rubber band skipping. She cared little for renovating this run-down old house. But since her parents were content living in Q River Village, she had no qualms about building a spacious two-story home for the family right here in the countryside. Heidi stumbled back home in a total mess. Li Xiaofan swept her sharp, harsh eyes over her disheveled form and snapped sharply, "Where's the eldest son?" "Big brother refused to come back with me." Heiji returned empty-handed, seething with grievance. "You useless fool. You're less useful than the pigs we raise at home." Li Xiaofan slammed her cane against the ground, snarling viciously. Heiji lashed out through her tears. "It's the eldest daughter, in-law, who stopped him. And that brat Sangchio. Nothing I said could change their minds. That vile girl. Just as shameless and reckless as her mother." Li Xiaofan's face twisted with rage. Heiji hovered irritably in front of her, stoking the elder woman's anger further. "And you? A useless mouth eating our food for free. My son cursed the day he ever married you." Heidi was not one to swallow abuse quietly, and she yelled right back, "You rotten old crone. Insult me one more time and I'll bury you alive." The mother-in-law and daughter-in-law screamed vicious insults at each other. Inside the house, second brother Sang grabbed a slipper and hurled it straight into Heiji's face. "How dare you speak to my mother like that, you shrew? Say another word and I'll beat you senseless." Crushed by pent-up frustration and attacked by both mother and son, Heiji fled to a small wooded grove to meet her secret lover. She recounted every unpleasant incident of the day, heavily exaggerating her troubles to gain sympathy. "What am I supposed to do now? What if we run away together and start a new life somewhere else?" "We can't leave right now," the man replied. He had his own wife and family at home. If he ran off with Heiji, his spouse would scratch his face raw in retaliation. His mind drifted to the pretty young Sangchio, and greedy thoughts swirled in his head. I've got a plan, if you're willing to hear it out. Desperate for a solution, Hiji latched onto his words like a parched wanderer finding water in the desert. Tell me, what's your plan? A lewd grin spread across the man's face, revealing a row of yellowed, decayed teeth. Sangchio has to head back to school for orientation tomorrow, right? I'll lie in wait and assault her. Once her reputation is ruined for good, imagine how distraught her parents will be. Isn't this going too far? Hiji hesitated, not out of a flicker of conscience, but out of fear her lover might grow fond of Sangchio and abandon her. What's wrong with it? Think it through carefully. If Sangchio's name is dragged through the mud, your eldest brother will be consumed with rage and despair. Hiji mulled it over for a long while. Since Sangguojiang had refused to submit to their demands, she was determined to make his life miserable in return. She gritted her teeth and agreed to the scheme, still wary of her lover's intentions. Promise me you won't leave me for that girl. The man pinched the loose flesh on Hiji's stomach soothingly. Don't you worry a thing. You'll always be my favorite. The next day marked the sophomore school orientation. Working late into the night, Su Peijian sewed a brand new school bag and 2 sets of clothes for Sangchio by dim lamplight. With every stitch, Sangchio resolved to lift her parents out of hardship and give them a good life. As she sewed, Su Peijian chatted casually with Sangguojiang. Chio is growing up so fast. The clothes we made for her last year are already too small. Sangguojiang smiled softly. Teenagers shoot up in height so quickly at this age. Su Peijian sighed lightly. I'll head to Yangqing in a few days to visit her uncle and ask for leftover fabric from his garment factory. I can make new clothes for all of us with it. Sangchio suddenly remembered her maternal uncle worked at a clothing factory in Yangqing. The floral blouse she was wearing right now was sewn from scrap material he'd brought back from the city. Even discarded factory fabric was far nicer in color and pattern than the rough coarse cloth available locally. Thinking about her planned business partnership with Ji Jianan, a brilliant idea popped into her head. Mother, I want to come with you when you visit Uncle's house. What for? Su Peijian tied off the thread after finishing her stitching, holding the blouse up against Sangchio's frame. It fits you perfectly, not too tight or loose. I want to catch up with Uncle and look into ways we can earn extra money while I'm there. Knowing her daughter was always coming up with wild ideas, Sangguojiang frowned disapprovingly. You're supposed to focus on your schoolwork at your age. Stop chasing these risky money-making schemes. Father, my grades won't suffer at all. Sangchio stamped her foot anxiously, muttering quietly to herself, I just want to ask Uncle if there's a way to purchase clothing stock wholesale. Sangguojiang did not catch her quiet mumble, dismissing her request as childish mischief. You're entering the 2nd year of high school now, and the college entrance exam is looming right around the corner. You can't afford to slack off and end up with nothing to show for all your studying. Concentrate on your lessons. Early the next morning, Sangchio slung her backpack over her shoulder and headed for school. Orientation required no formal classes, only the distribution of new textbooks for the first semester of sophomore year. Having achieved excellent grades the previous school term, her head teacher publicly praised Sangchio in front of the whole grade. She walked up onto the platform to deliver a short speech, met with warm applause from her classmates. Reborn into this life, she felt incredibly blessed to see her old teacher and schoolmates once more. At noon, Sangchio packed up her books and walked out of the school gates. She happened to run into Lilan, who'd driven her car to pick up her son Tian Huayu. Chio, come ride back with us. You can tutor Huayu in physics on the way. Sangchio had a pre-arranged meeting time with Ji Jianan, so she politely declined. Thank you, Aunt Li, but I have errands to run back home. I'll drop by to help Huayu with his studies once I'm finished. Lilan did not press her further. Very well then. Be careful walking back alone as a young girl. Sangchio smiled and bid Lilan farewell. The only route leading from the town high school back to Q River Village was a narrow, secluded dirt trail. Halfway along the path, a pair of strong arms suddenly wrapped tightly around her waist. A heavy stench of alcohol clung to the man's body, making Sangchio feel nauseous. She struggled with all her strength to break free, but his grip was unbreakable. Help! Somebody help me! Scream all you want, there isn't a soul for miles around here. The man let out an obscene laugh, and Sangchio recognized him as No Air, a local villager and Hiji's secret lover. Baring his yellow-stained teeth, he leaned in to grab at her. Sangchio twisted her body desperately to dodge his advances. She was no match physically for the burly No Air. Worse still, the trail was isolated, flanked on both sides by tall cornfields with no one nearby to hear her cries for help. If she wanted to escape him, she would have to outsmart him instead of fighting brute force. Neo-Air stared greedily at the graceful young girl, the veins on his forehead bulging with malice. Keep screaming if you dare. You dressed up so prettily just to lure me in, didn't you? He dragged Sangchio backward and forced her onto the ground. No one's coming to save you now. He reached for the collar of her blouse, and Sangchio pretended to calm down to lull him into complacency. Confused by her sudden shift in behavior, Neo-Air grew even more arrogant and smug. Stick with me, and I'll give you everything you could ever want, fine food and nice clothes. I'll cut all ties with that old woman Hiji right away. Sangchio could barely hold back a scoff at how foolish her attacker was. Just as Neo-Air moved to unbutton the rest of her outerwear, she summoned all her strength and kicked him hard in the torso. Neo-Air howled in sharp pain. You vicious little brat. Sangchio sprinted for her life, yet Neo-Air lunged forward and tackled her to the ground once again. There's nowhere left for you to run. He leaned forward to grab hold of her, when a rock suddenly came hurtling through the air and struck his jaw, chipping several of his teeth. Who threw that rock at me? Sangchio scrambled upright to see Yu Chongyan emerge from the cornfield with his school bag slung over one shoulder. I did. Neo-Air rubbed his aching jaw, consumed with burning rage. You punk. I'll teach you a painful lesson you'll never forget for this. He charged toward Yu Chongyan to attack him, only for the boy to seize his wrist in an iron grip, squeezing so hard Neo-Air feared his bones would snap clean in two. Let go. It hurts. I'm sorry. Yu Chongyan wore a dark, stern expression, glancing briefly at Sangchio as she fixed her rumpled clothing. He'd come out to look for her that day, plagued with worry she might repeat the same self-destructive choices she'd made after listening to his elder brother in their past lives. Tears stung the corners of Sangchio's eyes. This exact dangerous ordeal had played out once before in her previous life. She'd thought she was doomed back then, yet Yu Chongyan had stepped in to save her both times. Thank you, she said, her voice quiet and distant. Yu Chongyan's face remained rigid as he tightened his hold on Neo-Air's wrist, drawing a scream of agony from the man. We're going straight to the police station. The town police station was a short distance away. Yu Chongyan accompanied Sangchio to file an official statement. The police did not condemn Yu Chongyan for breaking Neo-Air's wrist during the struggle. Instead, they praised his brave intervention. We've had our eye on Neo-Air for a long time now, and we've been waiting for solid grounds to arrest him. You did the right thing stepping in to protect this young lady, young man. You deserve our gratitude. Yu Chongyan glanced toward Sangchio, who stood outside looking shaken. I'm fine. She's the one who's been traumatized by this incident. You have our full assurance. The police captain clapped Yu Chongyan on the shoulder. We won't judge this young woman harshly or view her with prejudice over what she's endured today. By the time the two walked out of the police station, the afternoon sun had dipped low. A crisp autumn wind cut through the air, leaving Sangchio shivering from the cold. Yu Chongyan took off his jacket and draped it gently over her shoulders. Sangchio, there's something I need to talk to you about. Miss Chio.